welcome to the highly anticipated 2023 Digital Pay Expo. This is the premier platform for showcasing the best in innovation and development across the payments industry in Africa and beyond. And it's my pleasure to have every one of you here present today. I am Benga Aborowa, and I'm happy and honored to be your masters of ceremonies for today's event.
This morning, it's my honor and privilege to welcome you to DigitalPayExpo 2023. That you're here today is actually a testimony to the fact that you believe in the digital payment system. And don't forget that this is not just about Nigeria. Of course, we have people from different walks of life, from different parts of the country and different parts of the continent and of the world taking part in this conference and exhibition, which I'm going to tell you a bit about in the next 2-3 minutes, and I'm going to just take my seat. Today is a day that we want people to come together to look at the theme that we have set for this conference, the future of contactless, right? We know the trend across the world that, the payment systems is evolving, and this, even though the future is here with us, but it is still evolving in terms of technology, in terms of the market, and in terms of the expectations of all the stakeholders. It's important, and that's the message that I bring to you this morning. It's important that we all collaborate to make that future a reality. There are people watching us from, again, different parts of the world. There are people online. This is not just a physical meeting, it's hybrid. For you to be here this morning, for me, it says a lot. I'm sure everybody is busy. But it just says to me that we're all interested in that future. So it's exciting for us to take part in the conversations that is going to birth that future. DigitalPayExpo 2023, the future is contactless, has put together experts from different verticals of the payment systems. We're going to be looking at this topic from the point of view of the market. We're going to look at it from the point of view of, technologies that are in development, technologies that are here with us. We're going to look at it from the point of the last mile. The speakers that we have assembled this morning, and of course for the rest of the conference, which is today and tomorrow, will do justice to this theme. At the end of this conference, we'll be putting together a communique that we'll be sharing with different agencies in the public sector, in the private sector, just for everybody to see the outcome of the deliberations of this conference, and maybe take a cue from there. And so please sit back, relax, and enjoy the conversations that are going to come out of this conference. Thank you very much.
The Chief Convener, Mr. Adenka, Director, Payment Systems, Central Bank of Nigeria, a friend and a colleague, Musa Jimo, Dr. Benjamin, President, OPE, other operators, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Kindly permit me to extend the unreserved apology of my MDCO, Bello Hassan, who had made concerted effort to present himself here live at this event, but unfortunately, he had to be far away in Brazil attending an international conference of International Association of Deposit Insurance. He has asked me to represent him and has sent in his opening remarks and goodwill messages, and here it goes. It is my singular honor and pleasure to be part of the DigitalPayExpo 2023 to discuss the crucial topic of financial inclusion in Nigeria and the path NDIC has taken so far. This conference, with the theme "The Future of Contactless," could not be held at a better time, as it aligns perfectly with the rapid expansion of the digital financial services and payment systems that have revolutionized the banking and finance sector. These advancements present us with tremendous opportunities and possibilities for consumers, operators, and regulators alike. I would like to commend the organizers for bringing together distinguished personalities, industry experts, regulators, and operators to engage, learn, and build positive alliances. Financial inclusion is defined as the provision of a broad range of high-quality financial products and services, and are appropriate, affordable, and accessible, meeting the needs of the people. These services empower families and small business owners, enabling them to generate income, manage cash flows, invest in opportunities, and work their way out of poverty. In 2010, 46% of the adult population in Nigeria were financially excluded. By 2011, as part of the Maya Declaration, endorsed at the Alliance for Financial Inclusion Global Policy Forum in Mexico, Nigeria made a pledge to reduce the percentage of financially excluded adults from 46.3% in 2010 to 20% by 2020. To achieve this target, the Central Bank of Nigeria established the National Financial Inclusion Committee. I'm sure Mr. Jimo will dwell more on this, comprising relevant stakeholders in the financial industry and relevant ministries, departments, and agencies, including the NDIC. The committee worked together to develop a collective strategy aimed at achieving the financial inclusion goal. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is pertinent to note that the Nigerian Deposit Insurance Corporation plays a crucial role in contributing to the financial inclusion by providing deposit insurance coverage to depositors of financial institutions, which ensures that depositors' funds are protected and that they are reimbursed in the event of bank failure. This enhances public confidence in the financial system, incentivizing the unbanked population to access financial services. As a member of the National Financial Inclusion Committee, the NDIC plays a dual role of an enabler and supporting institution in setting regulation and policies on financial inclusion, as well as supporting the Central Bank of Nigeria to achieve the national financial inclusion goals. In 2012, the National Financial Inclusion Committee developed and launched the National Financial Inclusion Strategy, NFIS, with the overall target of an 80% national financial inclusion rate by the year 2020. The strategy identified key barriers to financial inclusion, which comprise, among others, lack of income, lack of access to financial services, lack of knowledge about financial services, cumbersome KYC requirements, and high cost of services. The NFIS focused on creating an enabling environment for the expansion of agency and mobile banking, access to credit, microinsurance, enhancing financial literacy, and facilitating uptake of financial services by providing uniform national identity. Ladies and gentlemen, various guidelines and frameworks were implemented to support the strategy, such as the 3-third KYC requirements, micro insurance guidelines, regulatory framework for licensed super agents, and establishment of the MSME fund, among others. As part of this effort, the NDIC also implemented the pass-through deposit insurance scheme, which provides deposit insurance cover for subscribers of licensed mobile money operators within the Nigerian economy. By the year 2018, the EFINA reports reflected a financial inclusion rate of 36.8%, which, although improved, was still considered as too high. This led to the revision of the strategy by 2019 as the National Financial Inclusion Strategy, NFIS 2.0. The EFINA Access to Financial Services in Nigeria 2020 survey indicated a financial inclusion rate of approximately 64%, still below the 80% target set for 2020. Of course, there were gaps in between which COVID could take the credit. Despite significant progress, critical gaps remain, particularly in the northern region of the country. By 2022, the National Financial Inclusion Strategy, TAG 3.0, was launched with a revised target of 95% target by 2024. It prioritized financial access to excluded demographic groups such as women, youth, micro, small, and medium enterprises, rural dwellers, and adult Nigerians, most especially in the northern part of Nigeria. The strategy places emphasis on leveraging innovation and digital financial services, particularly within the fintech ecosystem. Recent initiatives have also seen a shift towards focus on digital financial inclusion. The launch of the Nigerian Central Bank Digital Currency, CBDC, the e-Naira, which is the second CBDC in the world after the Bahamas, is envisaged to bring benefits to financial inclusion as it provides remote access to savings and payment capabilities through digital wallets. The e-Naira serves as a powerful tool to unlock entrepreneurship and business activities, especially for the small and medium-sized enterprises, by enabling them to access electronic payments, expand their customer base, and participate in the formal economy. In a bid to expand on the deployment of financial services via the expansion of mobile money platforms, the CBN granted license to 2 large telecommunication firms to operate payment service banks with the focus of deploying financial services to the underserved and hard-to-reach populations using digital platforms and agent networks. The NDIC also provides deposit insurance coverage to depositors of PSBs in order to protect their funds and enhance public confidence in accessing these financial services. The corporation, again, a key driver towards implementation of the financial literacy framework in collaboration with the Central Bank of Nigeria and other stakeholders in financial literacy, curriculum development in secondary school, and capacity building for trainers of entrepreneurs, which has been expanded to include recently launched e-learning portal called Sabi Money, promoting digital financial literacy. The corporation, on its own part, has also developed curricula on deposit insurance system for introduction into academic programs of the universities and other tertiary institutions in Nigeria. The corporation further engages financial literacy campaigns for the youth in secondary school, as well as sensitization campaigns with critical stakeholders. From apart the corporation objectives, enhance public awareness on depositor protection and benefits of accessing licensed financial institutions. The corporation also achieved significant milestones in bank liquidation, declaring full liquidation dividends to depositors of 20 banks in liquidation. This demonstrates our commitment to ensuring depositors receive their funds in excess of guaranteed sums. Furthermore, the implementation of the single customer view reporting template ensures prompt payment to depositors of insured financial institutions within 7 working days in the event of failure and liquidation of institutions. In line with our commitment to enhancing supervision of microfinance banks, the corporation established the National Association of Microfinance Banks Unified Information Technology, tagged NAMBUT, a platform established in collaboration with the central bank. Together with our stakeholders and partners in the financial industry, we are confident that we can achieve a more inclusive and prosperous Nigeria for all its citizens. Thank you, and I wish you a fruitful deliberation. Bello Hassan, OON, FSCA.
So permit me to latch on the speech that has already been made by NDIC. That speech could also have been made by a CBN, right? I mean, so I'll just add 2 paragraphs to your speech so I can leave the stage for the experts to come and talk about the real stuff, and which is about the future today, contactless. Why contactless? I really don't know why Yinka chose this, because we're already building the contactless guideline right now, so he's far ahead of us, and that's a very good one. So it will give us an opportunity to take feedbacks, observation, and other international experiences to strengthen our guidelines on contactless. But permit me to say that whether we like it or not, technology is moving at a speed that we cannot catch. And that is the dilemma of regulators. We just can't catch with technology. So what we do most of the time is to sit down, look, and then you follow. But most of the time, it's very dangerous, because the consequential effect of sitting down and be observing what happens before you put in a regulation is that the cyber owners will undercut you. And we were just having a discussion here today, and I said, whether you like it or not, there could be bad guys among us here. So whatever we discuss on contactless and all of that, the most important aspect that we should focus on is on risk mitigation. And that will basically form the core of my discussion. That there are several contactless payment solutions, be it the QR code, the tap and go, and all of that. All of them fall under the umbrella of contactless. And so the banks that are here, the payment service providers that are here, the fintechs, it is very important that we take 2 things into consideration when we're building contactless solutions: risk and consumer protection. How do we safeguard the payment solutions that we give to our customers? Danger in contactless is that you don't even need to put your PIN. You simply tap and go. So question is, what if somebody has my phone? Or if somebody has my card? You can simply just tap and go. Nigeria today is even more fortified, because in Nigeria we require that all cards be EMV. So it has to be strengthened with chip and PIN, right? So in the US and in some other countries, which I have had opportunity to make payments in, they actually just go and swipe. Today, for us in Nigeria, we insist that the chip should be the default payment device. In some countries, the default is the mark stripe. And as you know, for some of those who are technology savvy, you know that mark stripe is very, very easy to copy. And so how then do we introduce contactless payment that requires no approval or authentication from the owner of the device? And this is where this discussion should focus on. What should be the transaction limit? How do we mitigate against incidents of fraud that may happen? How do we protect our consumers? The only way you can incentivize the consumers is to build trust around your system. If people don't trust your system, they won't use it, believe me. And that's why you see that the dynamic has changed. In 2020, a lot of things happened. It actually changed the entire world in terms of how we make payments. Nobody wanted to touch an ATM. Nobody wanted to touch a POS terminal. Everybody wanted to just do a tap and go. And so there was a huge ramp up of the adoption of contactless during the COVID era. So our discussions today and some of the exhibitors that I've seen, and I'm sure they're here to show you how we can strengthen the risk mitigation requirement around contactless payment. So whoever, I know there are arrays of speakers that have been, lined up to speak on contactless and other things regarding payment system. But please, Yinka and the organizers, I would like to crave your indulgence that whichever way you guys speak, put consumer protection into consideration and put risk into consideration. If someone uses contactless and money is filtered away, how do you play around restitution? How do you play around chargeback? What is the right of the consumer and what is right of the issues and the acquirers of the system? So on this note, I would like to leave the stage for those who would like to come and talk about this issue to come up and talk about it. Thank you very much.
For me, it is a privilege to be here this morning to share a few words and insights on the perspectives, the future of banking. I think this topic is very apt at this time, and I want to commend the organizers, Taman Consulting, for creating time to organize this session. And it's indeed a very good sharing session. And I urge us all to please try and not just listen, but share ideas. Because the future that we seek is here with us. And when we say the future of banking or the perspectives, I always say simply, the future of banking as it is today is purely digital. And that future that we may think is so far is actually here with us. And that's why when our global bank, we started about 4 years ago, we said we were digital because we realized that whilst in Africa, brick and mortar is still relevant, the future is indeed digital. And that future must be created from today by the players. So I like to say that the train has moved. Okay? When you say it's moving, it's like it has actually moved. And only those who realize it and hopped on it on time are going to really have the future as they have designed it. So it's no longer an option, but really an inevitability that we should digitize. The future of banking is going to be characterized by several advancements in digital space. Now, we have evolved over time in banking. I mean, from what used to be cash-based to now digital payments, the mobile app, the web-based payment, the e-naira, as Mr. Bashir talked about, USSD, the cards, the POS, contactless, as already spoken to. Of course, the NFCs, the near-field communication, QR code-based payments, we are all used to that. So it's no longer like it's going to come. They are all already operational. And these are driven by the rise of smartphones, as we all know. All of us here, I'm sure, have smartphones, and we can attest to this. But look at the evolution of banking over time. From 2000 BC, how, we saw Egypt and the trade by barter. We saw in the US, the first credit card, the Visa card, 1976, 77, and then Japan first ATM, in 1960. And we saw in Norway, 1990s, the first mobile banking outing, leveraging the wireless application protocol. In 2010, we now started seeing digital age coming up, web-based technologies, mobile banking, Android, Google, iOS, and all that we are now used to today. So digital payments is really growing in Nigeria and the world at large. Today, we are seeing 7.7 trillion this year in digital payments in Nigeria. And that is growing at a very rapid rate of 30.7 CAGR, and that is going to be about 12.8 trillion by 2027. E-commerce, digital commerce, also growing at a very fast pace, and by end of this year, we are looking at about 6.6 trillion in digital commerce. But compare that with China, where you're seeing 1,673 trillion this year in digital payments. You then realize that we have a huge untapped potential. It's a huge market that we are just trying to start, scraping from. So efforts like these are geared towards ensuring that we appreciate the need to focus very well and harness the enormous gains that can accrue from this digital space. Now, over time, we've seen disruptions purely from technology. And you're seeing about 9 pillars that have informed innovations or driven that over time. Of course, the cashless world, alternative lending, the process externalization, smarter, faster machines, crowdfunding, new payment rails, shifting customer preferences, very important, dynamic shifting customer preferences, empowered investors. They say he who gives, how do you say it? He who gives the power so dictates the tone or something. So investors are becoming very powerful, and they tell you how they want to go, and you've got to listen to them. And of course, new market platforms. All these have different algorithms and areas that you must focus on if you are to indeed be a player in this market. Now, AI has done a lot and is doing a lot and taking us to a different realm. And imagine if you were to allow yourself to have your eyes bound and put in a train and taken on a trip for days. When you get to where you are being taken to, and you're unbound, you'll be lost. You won't know where you are. That is what AI will do to us if we don't open our eyes and follow it very closely. It is a very good thing, but it has to be very well managed. Now, there are 3 areas that we must look at: the customer engagement, our operations, our risk, and compliance. And all these must focus on efficiency, scalability, and how you accelerate and enhance decision insights. These are just highlights of what are key to each of these areas. We've seen how you can simplify your processes and automate them for efficiency. We are aware of the robo-advisory solution that is out there. We've seen how you can automate and standardize your processes. You know, the RPA is an example. We've seen how you can reduce your cost by automation and therefore pass on to consumers a lot more reduced cost. Today, the fintechs are leveraging on this. The fintechs are able to give POSs and stuff to merchants at a much reduced cost because they are able to drive efficiency more than the banks that are laden with overheads and regulation, you know, by our friends, you know, can do. So the future is for those who are efficient. And I want to also urge my CBN friends here to try and see how we can be helped as operators to be a lot more efficient. Now you must scale non-linearly. Okay? We've seen what the likes of Uber, you know, had done. Okay? You don't have to invest so much to scale. Okay? You can do things without much investment and you scale massively. Okay? And of course, you must have enough to make smart and informed decisions. We know what we can do with machine learning. We know what we can do with DL, the blockchain, virtual ledger technologies. You know, this can play a lot of role in us being true players in the emerging digital world. Now, what you keep seeing in banking going forward is enhanced personalization. You know, I like this advert of one bank that says, one customer bank. Every customer wants to feel important. So the more you can personalize, the more you own the customer. So banks must leverage customer data and advanced analytics to offer highly personalized services. We must use AI and machine learning algorithms to understand individual preferences and provide bespoke services. That's the way we can own your space and your customers. At Global Bank, we try to do this from day one. And those who bank with us, use our mobile app, will see that there are a lot of features in the mobile app. And then we're the first bank in Nigeria to actually apply AI to our mobile app, where you can actually get on the mobile app. You are paying a bank. The app tells you are paying either of these three banks, and you pick one. You are paying an amount. It gives you three options, and you pick one, based on the customer data that we have in the system. You know, it's now common, but we're the first to start that, and we are doing a lot more things in that regard. So we must keep adapting to the customer's preferences and enhancing personalization. The second point is the omni-channel experience. You want to have one touch point that covers everything. The customer wants to be able to say, okay, I commence my activity on the mobile app. I get on to, you know, to any other point, the same thing can continue. So you must provide the customer with a seamless experience across multiple channels. The mobile app, the website, social platforms, and the smart devices. Okay, so customers will be able to initiate transactions, access financial information, receive support through various touchpoints in a safe, quick, and convenient manner. Now, smart banking is here. It's no longer the future, it's actually here. It is now to be improved and enhanced. Mobile banking continues to dominate our digital space. Mobile apps will become feature-rich, providing a comprehensive range of banking services, including money management tools, budgeting assistance, personalized notifications, and real-time customer support. So banks need to create an invisible fabric around the customer so that he feels his bank is his personal financial manager, always available on the palm. Banking is now on the palm. And the more we make that convenient for the customer and safe for the customer, the more share we can have in the emerging digital space. We must also integrate emerging technologies. Several of them, the blockchain, embedded technologies, Internet of Things, the big data analytics, contactless, we must be able to put them together and say, how can we use each or a combination of them for our customers' good? And that we can only do if we have the customers' ears and we listen to the customers' needs very closely. Now, open banking is also here. Musa Demon will also agree that CBN is worked so much on this. There was a framework issued recently and a guideline on open banking in Nigeria. And this will allow sharing of customer information, authorized information between banks and third parties. And this will facilitate customer-centric products and services. You know, before now, you know, you have to have your own and not rely on what Bank A has on the customer or whoever. But with open banking, you can share data. And I hope that that will actually kick off in earnest and enhance efficiency and customer service. So CBN also realized that there are ecosystems and that the use of API is gaining traction. So open banking will strengthen agency banking, financial inclusion, KYC, handling. It will also help your credit rating and enhance innovation and competition in the entire industry. So it's coming not too late, but like they say, better late than never. I think CBN has done a lot of work on this, and we now need to leverage what has been done and ensure that the customer feels the impact and the value in open banking. And now, I heard Jim talk about customer protection. The customer now has better control of his data. You know, there are guidelines as to how you can, allow sharing and all that. So it gives that customer that control that if it's not authorized by him, you can't really share it or use it. And CBN also proposed an open banking registry, okay, which is where they're going to have data about all those who are playing in that space and create some level of control and confidence around it. So this will facilitate collaboration between banks, fintechs, and other and OFIs and third-party partnerships that will thrive and help the system. We've talked about contactless, already. I won't dwell much on this, but this really is already happening. It's no longer something that is far from us. Today, all our cards are actually contactless in Global's Bank, and controls are in place to ensure that it's safe. Of course, the chip and pin is still there, but you can tap, and go on with it. So it's a word that is already with us. Blockchain is something that is already being used here, but the potential is not yet harnessed, as a market. A lot of us are still quite, unsure of how it works. But blockchain actually helps you create ecosystems, that are more reliable and safe. And in Nigeria, you can create several ecosystems. It's for you to design what you call the ecosystem. We have used this for some corporates, their value chain and all that, and it has worked very well. So it's something that we almost, see the advantage in the distributed ledger technology. CBN uses for the in-era, I think it's working well, for all of us, and a lot can still be done with this technology. Big data, you can't overemphasize this. The more you have, the more you know about your market, your customer, the more things you can do. The more you can create bespoke services for the customer and endear yourself to the customer. I talked about what we do already in Global's Bank, and we can only keep trying to enhance that. the consequence of sitting down, to use the word of my friend Jimon, and watching, and not ensuring that regulation is alive, is like looking at the world and nuclear proliferation happening without anybody doing anything. It will consume us. AI will consume us if we don't bring heads together as a globe, not even as CBN alone. There should be a global effort to regulate AI. If we don't, AI may pose a big threat to humanity and to our financial space. So I want to please urge our CBN to work hand in hand with other regulators, globally, to evolve, and what I would call a global regulatory framework around AI. That way, we'll be safer, and we'll see a future that we can be rest assured that will give us the best, and we'll all be in that future. I thank you for listening.
The world has changed. I was talking to a crop of young people recently, or even I was talking to one of my daughter, who is writing GCSE now. Yesterday, I was asking her, have you memorized the formulas? She said, Dad, you don't need to memorize formulas. They give us formulas. I said, eh? In our days, in the 80s, when we were writing school stats, you have to, 4-figure table, you have to know root 60, root 30. Then afterwards, they started using calculators. Now, they give them formulas. You can see how the world has changed completely. I also remember in our days when we were in the universities in the 80s, when they give you an assignment to go to the library, you take encyclopedia, you take textbooks, you take everything, you read, you summarize, you do references. Today, as I give them the topic, they are putting it on the phone and they are seeing all the answers. The world has changed. The world is now in the period of immediacy. You cannot afford to say tomorrow or day after tomorrow. You are gone. I would like to even believe that when you check the rate at which the earth is rotating and revolving, I'm sure it has changed from what we learned in those days, because everything is changing very fast. So today, it's very important for us to look at these topics or these issues. When we started banking, I started banking almost 3 decades ago. When I look at what we are doing today, it has changed completely. Then, if you leave a balance in the books, you see the balance tomorrow. Because there was no... But today, if you leave 5 billion in an account, tomorrow you may see nothing there. It will have gone without notifying you. That is what has happened. The world has changed. The market has changed. The customers have changed. Everybody, even the regulators, you see the way I greeted my regulator when we started this discussion, especially, they have even... Don't let me talk too much before I get a sanction. So that's how the world is now. So you cannot afford to be who you were yesterday, otherwise you'll be dead. My brother, my senior MD, said the train has moved. That's not only moved, the train is almost flying now. It's no longer moving on the track. That is where we are. That sets the tone of what I'll be talking about today. So my outline, I'll talk about introduction to what I'm doing, various perspectives from payment system. I'll talk about the stakeholders, future trends, and I'll conclude. We all know what payment systems are. The critical thing, like I said, is speed and efficiency. That's the most important to everybody. So if you have a system or a platform or whatever you're doing now, I just give an example of assignments in school. Everything now is like speed of light. So speed and efficiency is very important as far as payment systems is concerned. Convenience and accessibility. People don't want to go anywhere to do things again. I want to do everything on my phone. I want to do everything the best way I can get it done without even going through the stress. I'll tell you, we started Optimus Bank about 4 months ago. Over 99% of the accounts opened in the bank today were opened digitally. People don't go to the banking hall any longer. I remember my previous life, my previous employment, the banking hall is always full with people. Today, people don't come to banking hall any longer. It's even made easier for customers by all the POS people around the corner. By the time you're going to spend how much money to go to the bank, to go and queue up, that doesn't happen any longer. The POS people have made, now with the cost of transportation, fuel price increase, you see, it's going to get even, I'm sure I'm sure some of you will have noticed, in the last 2-3 days, Lloyds Bank announced that they're closing 400 of their branches in the UK. Last year, HSBC closed over 200 and something of their branches in the UK. That is what we are seeing today. So accessibility, being able to do what you want to do at your convenience in your room or whatever, you can do anywhere. That is what is critical now. We've talked about globalization of e-commerce. I'm in Lagos. I want to make payment in Brazil. I want to send money to my brother in Brazil to buy me something from my MD of NDIC. I don't need to go through a lot. It's been made so easy. Financial inclusion, I don't want to waste time on that. We've talked about that. Everybody's getting involved now. Even in the rural areas, people are getting involved. One of the things that has happened to us, which Mr. Elias mentioned, is what happened when we had that COVID experience. Every other thing changed. People did not know that. Maybe some of us that have been exposed to other economies like Kenya, etc. We knew what M-Pesa had done. We knew what people were doing with it. But now it has come here. And again, one thing I've realized is that, people that come later always get it better than those that were there before them. The advantage of leapfrogging. It's helping us in this economy a lot. I don't need to make the mistakes that the big ones have made. So it's catching up very quick on us here, and it's helping us to actually leapfrog. Security and fraud prevention. I cannot overemphasize that. People ahead me have spoken about that. It's very critical. In actual fact, if you're talking to CBN today, one of the things they want to see with you is your chief cybersecurity officer. It's now more important than what they used to be. They're now very critical in the organization. So it's very critical for us in the payment system. The key stakeholders in the payments ecosystem, financial institutions, banks, etc., fintechs, etc. These are key major stakeholders there. Merchants, very critical. The consumers, you and I, that consume these services. The processors, very, very important in the ecosystem. The networks, that enable things to connect, very important. Then, the super important ones, the regulatory authorities. I'm always saying regulatory authorities because I know they're very, very, very critical. That's why I mentioned them last. When they said the big masquerade come last. That's why they're there at the end there. Now, let's talk about the perspectives. Perspectives means how do people see things? What's their views? How are they looking at it? What do they see about it? First, the consumers. These are the most important part of the ecosystem as far as transactions are concerned. They've now realized how important payment systems and payment convenience is. And that's why you could see the rate at which they're growing. Mr. Elias showed us the statistics. It's growing at a very fast rate. And it will continue to grow. Because a lot of people are yet to even latch on to this. So it's going to continue to grow. And they're looking for various methods. You can't tie them to one. So the more robust the channels are, the better it is for them. Critical for them is security. One thing about consumers is that the moment they lose money, they will not come back again. Because it's always painful, for them. So what's critical for us that we have to discuss in contactless payment is security and fraud prevention. And again, tracking transactions, ensuring that there's a process through which you can know and who is very important for the consumers. The merchants want efficient payments. They want to see the values of whatever they've taken from their customers or whatever they're giving out. They want quick settlement of funds. So at the meeting today, today and tomorrow, I think we need to talk about settlement of funds in contactless environment. Very important. Protection against fraud again and chargebacks again is common. You will see that frauds and protection, etc., cuts across all the key stakeholders. It's very important for them. They want to be sure that their funds are safe and their transactions are safe. Payment processor, like I said, they are intermediary, and encryption and data security is very critical to them. We cannot overemphasize that. We banks and fintechs, etc., ours is to make life easy. Less transactions. I remember in those days, most of transactions are done in bank. Now, I believe about 80 or 90% of transactions are done online, real time. Nobody comes to the banking hall again to come and sit down and watch you make payments. The payment networks, very important also. These are also very critical because without them, you can't do anything. And their perspectives that they know is growing. They know it's fundamental. And they want to ensure that there is interoperability between all the various platforms. Then the regulators, ensuring that things are safe, things are secured. Rules. I'm happy my friend Musa mentioned the fact that standards, they're coming up with policies, very important. I believe outcome of this will go into all those policies for them. And again, fairness in transactions. Trends. Mr. Akinzo has spoken about this already. As we're moving into, you can see how it's going. All these are spoken, so I won't waste much of our time here. But it's important that we get this right. We can't skip any of this. We have to get it right step by step, so that at the end of the day, we can have the utopian payment platform or system that we desire. Now, my final conclusion on this. It's important for us to know that it is a collective responsibility of everybody, not just the regulator, not just the operators. Everybody must be involved. That's why I like the way you mentioned collaboration. We all must work together. The funny thing is that if you don't do it, external people will do it for us. So we have to take it as a responsibility, as a body, so that we can derive the benefits that come from the ecosystem that we have created. The value in this segment is a lot. You can look at the volume. Look at what Mr. Elias, the statistics he presented. You can see the trajectory of growth. And by the time it penetrates all across the country, you could imagine what will happen. So we just have to get it right and do it well. Collaboration, like I said, is very important. And what would you say at the end of the day? We'll be able to track and trap issues, track frauds, and again, enhance the confidence of the consumer in what we are trying to do. So we have no alternative, like he said. In those days, they say is a Tina factor. That is, there is no alternative. We have to work together to build a platform or a structure, an ecosystem that will facilitate, a flawless payment system, which will be enhanced with digital, with a contactless technology when implemented. Thank you so much.
So I'm going to share my perspective on contactless, and we share it from two different views as a practitioner. So when I share my perspective, I will tell you what I think as a practitioner, as a key player in the industry, and at the same time, also as a facilitator in this space. Before I go forward as well, I try to look at the global perspective, Africa, one, and coming back to Nigeria. And you will pardon me to also make reference to Access Bank, being one of the bank I can make reference to without any approval to share some of the things I'll be talking about. But in contactless, two things that comes to my mind is, number one, Africa as a nation, as a continent, Nigeria as a nation, we need to start looking at how we develop our own solution to solve our problems. And when you look at contactless, yes, we learn from the global space, and at the same time, we need to start building capacity. So I will share some of my experience in that perspective. Payment, it's actually the oil that drives the economy. And for payments to happen, there must be a consumer and there must be the offer of a service. And when we look at contactless, today we have the cash payment, you have the card payment, you have mobile, you leverage your mobile to do your transaction. And when you go to a merchant, there must be a contact when you leverage on the existing means of payment. That's the cash, which is more dominant in Africa, dominant in Nigeria today. And contactless, in a very simple explanation, is just how do you make transaction without having a contact with either the device or with a human being that is accepting the transaction. And this is also leveraging on some technology like the RFID and the near-field technology. So that's just what contactless is all about. I do my transaction, I have no contact with a device or with a human being that I'm dealing with. I hope. Then I would also like to talk about the evolution of payments. We started payment from the days of barter and commodity money, moving to the minted metal, the paper money, banknotes, credit card, debit card, and online payments. Today, we are in the space of contactless, which is one of the reasons why we are at this event. Of course, there will continue to be an evolution. And how will this impact on our businesses? How are we going to play as a country? How are we going to play as businesses? So I'd like to also speak about the global space of contactless. So as of today, the total transaction value of digital payments today, contactless is layer on digital payment. You can't have contactless without digital payment. So digital payment today, globally, it's projected to get to $9.46 trillion this year, 2023. And it's also expected to grow at 11.8% compound annual growth rate, which will take us to about $14.78 trillion by 2027. And it's also expected that we should be doing about 2 trillion count of transactions by 2026. So overview of contactless. Of course, I spoke about contactless, ability to make transaction without having a contact with human being or with any device. It brings the value from efficiency to customers. It gives convenience, and it gives some security, and it brings seamless payments. And what's the evolution of contactless payments? It started with contactless card. Then we have we have the mobile wallet, we have the wearables, we have the biometric, and we have Internet of Things. So these are platforms that have enabled contactless payments within the payment space. And also looking at the adoption of contactless. Today, we have about 782 million contactless payment users globally. And this is also expected to grow by 60%. Over the next 1 year to about 1 billion. And we expect the transaction on contactless to get to about $10 trillion by 2027. Now, what are the key drivers of contactless? The market has changed. There has been a lot of internet penetration. There's a lot of smartphone users in the market today. There's increased concern for hygiene and health safety. There's also the need for convenience, speed, and enhanced security. And today in the market, we have Visa driving about 4.2 billion cards in circulation with contactless capability. We have MasterCard doing about 2.8 billion cards in circulation. We have PayPal with 435 million users. We have Apple Pay, Google Pay, and Amex. We have the Oyster in the UK for transport, and Amazon, just to mention a few key providers of contactless payments in the global market. So I will speak a little bit about Europe, coming back to how contactless is faring in Europe. According to MasterCard, about 78% of transactions across Europe are now contactless. And what is driving the contactless markets in Europe? Number one, the regulatory sandbox and the innovation hubs. Of course, the regulatory sandbox has enabled the interaction between the traditional banks, fintechs, and the players in the payment scheme to be able to create innovations that enhance contactless and other form of innovative payments. The open banking and the payment initiatives services, the strong customer authentication and revised payment service directive, PSD2 strategy. Those were the things that has driven the contactless evolution in Europe. And what are the key drivers, the key trends and innovations in Europe? We have the QR, we have the wearables, we have the integration with public transportations and enhanced security measures. Now, going to North America. North America today, they contribute close to about 30% revenue share of contactless transaction globally. And contactless payment is on the rise in the North American markets, and that has changed, has impacted on their economy, impacted on customer experience, and is growing at a rate that we see the entire card payments and mobile payments in North America by 2028 to move to almost 90% of contactless transaction. The consumer adoption in North America is actually driven by the impact of COVID, which is one of the key drivers from the pandemic. A lot of people avoid contact with different devices and with human beings, and there's a preference for mobile payments in North America today, Canada, United States, and some other countries in that space. Then the Scandinavia, very interesting markets as well. 8 out of 10 transactions on card in the Scandinavia countries is a contactless transaction. Mobile payment solutions, the interoperability and the government support are the key drivers for the penetration of contactless in the Scandinavia. Denmark alone has about 90% of their card payments being contactless. Norway has about 87%. Sweden has about 70% of their cards. Then coming into Africa, of course, Africa being who we are, there's still a lot to be done in Africa. We are not in the space, we are not in the level we need to be in terms of contactless transaction. We are still far from the Scandinavia, from the North America, from Europe. Most African countries are still predominantly cash-based transactions, and one of the factors leading to this is the cost, the infrastructure challenges, and thank you. Don't worry, I'm going to round up. So infrastructure challenges and the cost of processing those transactions, and also our behavior. Then coming to Nigeria, as a country, we have the mobile apps, like the Access Bank mobile app, enabled for contactless. But today, are we where we need to be? The answer is not, is yes. We are not where we need to be in terms of adoption. Maybe due to cultural, due to education. Then we have a lot of contactless cards in Nigeria today. Most of them, they come with contactless, but yet the awareness on where to use those contactless is actually not there. And I think the volume of, the percentage of transactions being consummated with EMV versus contactless is still far from where we need to be. Merchant acceptance, we see so many terminals in Nigeria today with contactless acceptable capability, but yet it's actually not encouraged, probably lack of education for some reason. Transportation system, apart from the Lagos BRT, there's still a lot of work to be done in terms of how we can integrate this to contactless payments. We have a lot of transportation systems still not being, still being processed by traditional means of transaction. Of course, government initiative, there hasn't been any regulatory framework to support the adoption of contactless payments in Nigeria. And of course, COVID will have been a good opportunity for us, but I think with the emergence of bird flu in China today, we hope that that is also a good warning. And the impact of contactless payments, of course, customer experience is very key. And these are the things that we expect will bring the value when it is well implemented. Economic impact, when you bring in contactless into the economy, there's going to be a major drive on the economic impact because productivity increase. A lot of people will not go to some markets because of the challenges they encounter in payments, and there is expected efficiency in that, in the entire economy. Of course, it brings data, it brings a lot of data-driven insights, and it creates a lot of opportunities around employment when there is efficiency and productivity in that space. Markets, impact on evolution and innovation. We see this to bring innovation if well implemented. There will be a shift from cards, and there will be shifts from cards to mobile and wearable devices, tokenizations. These are opportunities that will come with a full implementation and adoption of contactless. Of course, I've spoken about health. Definitely, it gives you some opportunity to reduce the transmission of diseases and create some levels of hygiene. So what are the challenges? Of course, consumer education and trust. A lot of people are still not aware they can do contactless transaction, and I think there's a lot of work to be done in that space. Infrastructure requirements and responsibility, very, very important. The infrastructure today is still not strong enough to carry the existing contact transaction. When you layer contactless on it, it's still going to be a major challenge. Of course, there are still some security challenges in terms of people believing you are doing a transaction without any form of authorization. Then it gives some fear, and people are not quite comfortable to move to contactless transaction. Then balancing convenience and financial literacy. With contactless, you're likely going to spend more money, and you probably may not be able to manage your expenditure. You just put in your payment device, and you get your transaction done without any authorization. Then regulatory and legal consideration is very important. Of course, that needs to be in place. And looking at Access Bank, there has been contactless contactless capability in Access Bank. There is nearby payment, yet the consumption is very low, where people can do transaction without asking for account number. The moment you have a proximity of less than 50 centimeters, you can do a transaction with the Access mobile app, and all you have to do is just discover the person, leveraging on the nearby payments. Of course, there are so many Access Bank cards in the industry today, and looking at their data, we still have a lot of gap between those cards being used on contactless devices versus contact transaction. So I'll just share some of the innovations that I know is being done within the organization. And this is just how we are seeing the evolution of contactless. Okay, so like I said earlier on, we all need to build our own solutions locally and try to see how we can reduce the cost of imported contactless transaction, because these are investments that when we adopt global technology, it becomes quite expensive. I expect a lot of players to start thinking through on how they can innovate around contactless. I will be rounding up with the future is contactless. Of course, we expect the emergence around voice-activated payments, in-app and mobile wallet payments, biometric wearables, and integration to Internet of Things. We are seeing very soon there will be a lot of automated cars, smart homes, smart vending machines. These are opportunities that we can leverage on with contactless payment. While the role of AI and machine learning is very important, which will help with fraud detection, prevention, is also going to help with a personalized user experience, predictive analytics. And concluding, the key takeaway, my key takeaway is the digital payment is on the rise, definitely. With digital payment being on the rise, definitely the importance of contactless needs to be layered on the digital payments, and also contactless payment methods are in the trend. All the Gen Zs today, we expect to see almost 99% of smartphones globally being contactless enabled. So the Gen Zs today, those are the things they are probably going to be using. They will not want to have contact with anybody. Then adoption of contactless payments, it's definitely must be driven by every players in the industry. And the benefits of contactless payments are things that we could start creating the value, which is expected to rise to almost $90 billion by 2032, that market alone. So it's an opportunity we can start looking at enhancing startups, businesses that are going into contactless payment. While the significance of contactless payments of the future is very important, the convenience of it is one bit that will definitely drive consumer usage, the global acceptance and standardization, small businesses adoption. Like I said earlier on, the Gen Zs, that's what they will definitely use for their payments, the hygiene and the tech advancement. So as I round up, I think this conference is in the right direction, focusing on contactless as a major theme of this event. And as we round up, getting into the deep of the conference, I believe this will definitely impact the entire industry. Thank you.
I come from the consumer end of things. I spent probably the first half of my 30-something year career helping to make consumers' lives better. And that makes this presentation a very interesting one for me because my focus for the better part of my life has been improving the lives of the consumers that we serve. And I think the evolution into contactless payments is a major move in that direction. I represent Secure ID, who is the largest smart card and security documents manufacturing entity on the continent. There are 4 of us, maybe a 5th one in the making right now. But we have the largest world-class and state-of-the-art manufacturing facility here in Nigeria, somewhere on the mainland in Isolo. And we provide products to 21 African countries outside of Nigeria, as well as providing SIM cards to all the telephony companies. You can clap if you want to, it's okay. You know, we're not too used to celebrating ourselves in Africa, but we'll get there. I think we're on our way. About 4 years ago, we decided to disrupt ourselves. And, you know, I'm not the face of the company. The face many of you would recognize is a very sweet-looking lady called Mrs. Kofu-Akikugbe, but when you get to know her better, you'll know that there's more to that face than sweetness. So she's the founder and the CEO of the company. We disrupted ourselves looking at the evolution into the digital space, believing that, you know, as all the eminent speakers before me have spoken, there is a curve, you know, along which, you know, technology, innovation is moving, and the digital space looms large on the foreground. And we began to look at innovative end-to-end solutions like digital cards, which are cards, you know, on your digital device, digital loyalty solutions, MPOS that many of us are used to, the whole tokenization story, moving your identity, totally digital now, you know, biometrics, and all the systems that have become rife across the world now. And this led us into a whole new world beyond cards. So, you know, we've conquered cards now. I think in the banking sector, we're easily 80+ share in Nigeria. But we're beginning to look at new things, like I said, like the tokenization, the digital bank cards, soft POS. We're looking at automated fare collection, which I'll speak about. Even in catering, we have a digitalized food solution, which means now you don't have to be carrying ledgers and signing paper for your staff, for those of us that have large staff complement. People actually just thumbprint in the canteen and they get a beautiful meal. And we actually have companies now that we provide that service to. We have transport as a service where we provide multimodal transportation solutions. We have access and staff management solutions that work in offices, in, out, visitor control. We do the whole data collection, digital identity management. We do delivery tracking and fulfilling of orders, instant issuance. In essence, we're looking at an evolving world based on, you know, the digital element coming into payment technology.
And what's going to be, or what are going to be the drivers of contactless payment as we advance in the 2020s, as the MD of Global Bank said, the proliferation of the digital banks. The big banks better get ready. I'm warning you. You don't know what those guys have up their sleeves. Someone has one branch in Nigeria and he'll take 30% of your customers if you're not careful. Everything is digital. Everything. People can issue cards off of a mobile phone in 10 minutes. And some of them are my customers. I finished a meeting with one of them and she said to me, sit there in the room. One of our guys will come and meet you. And 10 minutes later, I have their card in my wallet now. I won't tell you which of the fintechs it is, but you need to get your game up. The CBN and the federal government strive towards a cashless economy. The National Poverty Alleviation and Conditional Cash Transfer, many of us are aware that by the end of last year, the World Bank said it wasn't going to support anymore the physical handing out of cash, and it had to become, a digital exercise. The expanding base of local card schemes, many of us know that recently the NIBS group launched on that CBN, the Afrigo, and we're monitoring that closely. And then, as one of the speakers also said, there's a rapid evolution in the personal digital device space. You'll be amazed at what your mobile device is capable of doing. In fact, you need to be aware of some of the things it's doing, what you don't know about in interacting, with the internet and with other devices. A senior digital banking expert gave a forecast when I was speaking to her earlier this year. She said, I'm anticipating a 5-fold growth in card issuance this year alone into the next 1.5 years on the back of all these initiatives. And the key question to ask ourselves is that, will there be enough plastic and enough, chip modules to go around if we were to experience 500 index growth versus where we are today? So what can be done? We've got to look at a multifaceted approach. And in the Secure ID group, we're looking at all sectors. We like to call ourselves champions of lateral opportunities. Once we jump into an uncharted space, we're not only looking forward, we're looking at the sides as well. What else can we pick up as we go along? The mobile device seems to be the central tool on which most things will travel. So anything that can go on the smartphone had better go on it and go on it now. People want to be able to perform transactions in minutes. They want to be able to request service and get, answers in minutes. And if you are able to create that opportunity, of course, it must be contactless because they don't want to meet anyone, talk to anyone. They just want to get on their device and do what they need to do. Even in the physical card space, as you know that in Nigeria today, I think about 60 to 70% of the cards we're issuing now are contactless, but as a prior speaker to me said, I think the CEO of FinTech Foundry, most of the users of these cards don't know that they're carrying contactless cards. And also because the devices to use the cards on aren't yet widely available, the consciousness isn't there. But now people don't even want to go to the customer service line to wait for their cards anymore. They want to be able to receive those cards without interacting with anyone. And in comes what you call, full instant issuance and even the FII kiosk, which is again another graduation or dimension of the contactless payment system. And even in the transport sector where we play also, we manage through our transport subsidiary called TPS, the Abuja-Kaduna railway line, and we have a fully deployed e-ticketing scheme running on that service, which means from your mobile phone on the internet, self-service kiosks, you can buy your ticket without having to interact with anyone. And the revenue assurance is 100%. The minute we put that system in, all leakages were blocked. So we can digitalize this ticketing business across any mode of transport, integrating a card-centric management and account-based processing everybody gets their money in seconds after the transaction has been done. And we can use this also now to provide convenience, as you have in other parts of the world, where you can get out of your house on a single ticket, whether it's physical or on your device, and you can basically travel the length and breadth of a country across different modes of transport. Digital cards are the new normal. They're not fully here yet, as has been said, but the tokenization that's going through all the banks now is driving that. And like I said, if we see a massive growth in the number of cards, we probably will struggle with the plastic and the chip modules to provide. And I think even beyond the supply constraints, the appetite is already inclined more towards electronic devices rather than carrying physical things about. I'll give you a simple example. You would remember, I think about 10 years ago or more, you would get a physical token from the bank for your personal account. And every time you want to do a transaction, you have to remember, where is my token? And then suddenly, one of the banks, the token I had, wore down, the battery ran out, and I went there and they said, no, we don't do physical tokens anymore. Now we're going to put the token on your phone along with, so now I get into my bank app, I open it up, perform the transaction, and then open another app and do the verification, and it's gone. And now I don't have to remember where I put a token. So we begin to see that solutions that sit on our devices enable us to perform our transactions. It reduces our costs, increases the convenience to the individual, and just makes life more convenient overall. I'm told my time is also almost up, so I'm not going to go through all the technical details, but in a nutshell, we're moving, like I said, from the physical to the contactless version, which sits on our digital devices. Initially, the virtual card, which was the first version, used to be an online shopping variant only, but what we have now functions fully like your physical card. Even though it sits on your device, you can draw money with it, you can use it to perform a merchant transaction, you can also use it for tap and go in cases of transportation or other services that you may want to have access to. That's the instant issuance environment. The real service, like I spoke about, you have a fully digitalized automated environment that monitors everything that is happening within that ecosystem, captures revenue, distributes revenue, can give you, analysis of traffic, profile of customers, whatever you need. And those are some of those benefits you get. Like I said, you can make your purchase via your laptop. You can go online. You can get a mobile purchase. And when you want to go on, when you approach any of our stations, Idu or Kubwa in Abuja or Rigasa in Kaduna, once you place your ticket over the device, all your NIN details come up, so we can tell exactly who you are. And if the NIN details we see don't match the person in front of us, you won't even get into the station, much less get on the train. So that helps us to protect the rest of us in the country. And we're also able to give you a card that allows you to reload at your own leisure and travel as many times as you want for frequent travelers, and you can also get loyalty rewards for using that. We can pull that card forward into multimodal transport, so we can take it into road, we can take it into water transport, and it can become a single device by which you can do all your transportation in the course of the day without having to discuss with any agent or with anyone at a ticketing counter. We even have toll now that's going to become much more popular in the country. It used to be many years ago. It's coming back in a more modernized format now. And this time it's going to be advanced digital technology. Nobody is going to be standing there. You'll drive right through. It'll scan your car, pick the payment, distribute it to the relevant parties. and everyone will get the benefit of a more convenient way of life. In conclusion, you know, it's just convenience all around. It just gives us seamless and faster payment experience. You wave or tap your device near a terminal, you complete a transaction. It gives speed and efficiency. Contactless payments, you and I know, are faster compared to the traditional methods, and they reduce waiting time. I took my daughter to University of Michigan last year for a summer school program, and at the airport in one of the US cities, I can't remember, I bought her some snacks at one of the grocery stores in the airport. And I was trying to catch the attention of the lady who was selling in the store. I noticed that she wasn't leaving the middle of the store where she stood. And there were many of us, you know, those very small stores in the airport. She didn't leave the center there. So she kept wondering why I was trying to get her attention. I told her, I have to do a POS transaction to pay. She said, no. Just wave your card over that terminal by your side there. I said, yes, but you have to come and put in the amount that she said, no, I've put it in from the register where I'm standing. All you've got to do, sir, is wave your card. I waved it, you know, with an embarrassing smile on my face. And of course, 2 or 3 seconds later, you know, my payment was done. It's enhanced security when we do it right. Of course, the CBN has to give us the rules, and then all of us have to play by the rule book so that people don't get hurt getting into this. We've talked about hygiene and safety. Of course, it reduces the human contact element. Integration into the mobile devices means that people don't have to carry anything extra to be able to take advantage of the technology. And as it becomes more accepted, more services will be integrated into that contactless payment regime, and our lives will become more convenient. And then once we go into the more advanced areas of it, it'll help with things like, you know, internal security. It'll help with the convenience of things on the IoT, and will give us, you know, even more seamless payment experience all around. Thank you very much.
Some of the awards that we need to give, we just have to recognize, you know, the guest speakers at the opening ceremony. You would realize that, you know, most of the recipients are speakers of the session that is just ending. There were 2 clear awards, one that went to Secure ID and the other one to OPay. Those 2 awards were actually very well researched, and we had the Lagos State Office of Transformation, Creativity and Innovation as part of the process of selecting these 2 companies for those categories of awards.
Thank you very much, thank you.
On that note, we'd like to bring this session to a close. It's been very interesting, exciting, informative session. And we'd like to thank everyone that has been here, you know, through it all, you know, taking in, you know, lessons from the presentations that we've just, you know, been through. We also want to say thank you to the audience that connected virtually for, again, finding time to be part of this session. Obviously, there's a lot to do following, you know, this session, in the sessions ahead. Thank you again. I didn't say this during the opening remarks. Thank you to the sponsors of this event who have made it possible for this event to hold. A special thank you to them. I mean, same goes to the exhibitors who are here from, you know, different parts of the world. By the time you visit the exhibition ground, you will see what I mean by that. I mean, there are several companies from different parts that would like for you to see the technology that they have to present, and obviously for you to patronize them. On that note, I'd like to bring this session to a close by announcing that we will be going through this door, I believe, to the next door, where we'll be cutting the tape to declare the exhibition ground open, and we'll expect everybody to please kindly go in that direction, and then we can cut the tape and everybody can then go into the exhibition ground to see what is available. We'll be led by the representative of the managing director of NDIC, as well as Mr. Musa Jimo, the director of Payment Management Systems Department of the Central Bank. We will also have the bank managing directors and industry stakeholders here with us to join us in that tour, and everybody can then follow suit.
Cashless will continue. There's no slowing down. It's the natural path of social evolution. Contactless has huge potentials to deepen cashless. And that is why the theme of this conference this year is focused on contactless. So we're talking about two C's: cashless, which has been with us for a while, ever since the advent and introduction of digital payments. And then we're talking about contactless, which is an evolution on that spectrum. So cashless will be driven by contactless. And what this conference aims to do over the next 2 days is for us to be able to identify and leverage the drivers of cashless adoption. And all of this will be tied together about stakeholder convergence. And one key thing for us in developing economies, of which Nigeria is an active player, is about financial inclusion. And financial inclusion can hardly happen without digital inclusion. So we're on the same spectrum. And at the end of the day, this is about socioeconomic growth. So cashless is not cashless for its own sake. It's about socioeconomic growth. In accelerating and throttling payments, there's a benefit to the whole ecosystem. 4 I's of driving contactless payment adoption. And all of this is sitting on the 5th I, which I call immersion. Immersion means looking for the next 50 million people who are going to enter into payment through contactless. And I'm proposing that we look at those that have not been brought into the net. Look at from age 12 to 19. We now have e-Naira. How can we digitize e-Naira and make that available in a contactless format? We're having the AfriPay Go, which is a national payment card scheme, on which NIN is supposed to be embedded. And I'm going to roll that to say, with identity, it means you can actually have a first bank account just with your name. Just put down an NFC card that is domiciled on the e-Naira or any other account and you get started. Identity. Second one is infrastructure. Just upgrade. Create hubs around taking cashless chips forward and solutions around it. We already know that one of the benefits is instant. So instant issuance, you can get the card anywhere at any time. And merchants can also be settled easily, and that opens opportunity for insurance to underwrite low-value payments. So those are my final thoughts, and I imagine we'll be able to take this forward at some other conversations. Thank you very much. Thank you for listening.
We still have quite a few keynote presentations to go, but before we do that, we'd like to start with our virtual panel session. This panel session will be speaking to the theme, Driving Collaboration for the Adoption of Financial Technology in Africa. And I would like to invite our distinguished moderator to the stage. Dr. Babatunde Obrima is the Chief Operating Officer, FinTech Association of Nigeria.
Thanks, Martin. Thanks, Zana. Thanks, Lavina. And thanks, Ali. So collaboration is critical, and the feedback is that we need to collaborate amongst ourselves before we can talk about collaborating with regulators and collaborating with the larger society. But for us to grow the ecosystem, we need to collaborate to ensure that there's adoption and we can achieve financial inclusion. Thank you very much.
So it gives me great pleasure to be here to talk to people like you. I find it a rare privilege. And very quickly, I'm going to be talking to us about the anatomy of the new fraudster. Some of the conversations that have been had today had to do with consumer protection, risk mitigation. So I think that this topic is timely. So like he said, I head the growth and partnerships at BPC for West Africa. And fraud is just one of the things that we do. So we currently live in a highly connected world. Africa has about 570 million internet users, with Nigeria, Egypt, South Africa, and Morocco leading the pack. However, internet penetration varies across these countries. So we have a greater percentage of the population of Morocco, so they're leading in terms of internet penetration, but Nigeria still leads because of our population in terms of number of people who are connected to the internet. Now, our reality today is that our lives are currently being digitized. The way we pay, the way we get paid, how we move is currently digital. And increasingly, that is happening. And I do not expect any let-up in that in the near future. We also see a rapid growth and adoption of electronic payments, which has been evident by what everyone is saying here today. There is a proliferation of fintechs and financial services, different innovative propositions being thrown out there by the innovative fintechs and entrepreneurs. So we see that rapid acceleration of electronic payments.
Okay, so very quickly, I'll be talking about how to run a contactless-based payment system in Africa, not just Nigeria. And I want to touch on the fact that cash is still king, and you will agree with me, because if you look at the rate at which people withdraw cash from either the ATM machine or approach POS agents, you will understand that it looks like, as far as Africa is concerned, cash is still very dominant. The CBN tried to do a UAT, as someone put it very recently, and it backfired really bad. So it shows us that, you know, cash is still king. Cash is like here to stay. However, do we agree with me that the reason why we have this is because cash is very reliable? You can literally travel from here to anywhere in Nigeria and go with your cash, and you know that if your phone dies, you're not going to be stranded. If anything happens, you can whip out your cash and pay, and nobody is going to insult you. Abi, you agree with me? And there's no network problem doesn't come with cash. Also, it's extremely reliable. It's not like my phone died or anything. And that's from the perspective that we are thinking about running a contactless-based payment system business in Africa.
Largely, I want to talk to us from a partnering perspective, because collaboration really is one of the things we believe will drive cashless payments. I think one of the questions Jeremy asked was, how do we get 50 million people to come on board? He's speaking to scale. Another of the speakers, I think one of the panelists from Ghana, said, one of the issues we have with collaboration is APIs. Some of the fintechs are not exposing their APIs. So how do we begin to collaborate when even amongst ourselves as stakeholders, we're not able to have that seamless integration? So for us, our approach really would be to look at it from a vertical perspective. I mean, scale is something that is important to us. There are different segments of customers, if we may look at it. I would commend the work that the industry has done so far, particularly for the banked segment. But when you look at the unbanked and the underserved, particularly those in rural Nigeria, there are not very many players there. There are not very many players there. And you will agree with me that if we really want to move everyone along the customer spectrum towards the vision that we have for cashless payments in Nigeria, we need to plan to carry everyone along. Not just the banked, where most of the players are right now, but the unbanked, particularly all the way down to the last mile.
So basically, from my end, we are presenting, let's say, the AI technology and the benchmark research that we have done in the past 1 decade. And my presentation will including 5 sectors, okay? Start from 2022, we noticed that the ChatGPT is coming up into our daily lives, and we start to think, what are we going to do under the massive advancement of the AI development for the banks specifically? So these are some of the questions that we have been thinking, something which we have to be very careful, which is about the data security and privacy protection during this AI development. So based on us, our purpose is people-oriented, but high security. How do we protect the privacy of our customers? This is very important. We need more data security and most accurate data security production measurements and reliable data security processing methods. Especially when we are handling this, I think a lot of companies, especially from the data analysis side, they approaching us. I think for us, we are collaborating with the different laboratories for this kind of the data processing and data security production. Last but not the least, ladies and gentlemen, this is our conclusion. Based on our benchmark testing and our research, we believe that positive impact of AI on the financial industry for digital transformation is very important because we are helping more than 150 banks to optimize their technology, their platform, update all their systems on a daily basis. And the side effect is there should be a balance between AI technology and human expertise, okay? We are human beings, okay? And I hope this is the invitation for further discussion and communication. Thank you so much. I'm Kevin from Wildcard. I'm from China. Thank you.
Good morning, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to day 2 of the highly anticipated DigitalPayExpo, the premier platform for showcasing the latest developments and innovations in the payments industry across Africa and beyond. I am Genga Aborowa, your Master of Ceremonies for today, and it's an absolute pleasure to have you all here with me.
The first thing I'd like to say is to thank our regulators for giving us the enabling environment for the growth of digital payments. We all have been beneficiaries of the very supportive regulatory environment. The pace and the volumes of digital payment growth in Nigeria, especially during this cashless, has been unmatched. It's one of the fastest growth of digital payments anywhere in the world. At OPay, our mission is to make every country to work to support the financial inclusion of every country where we operate. And OPay is in many countries, Pakistan, Egypt, OPay is in Nigeria. And the common thread among some of these countries are countries with large population with a large percentage of the population who are not yet financially included. And we drive financial inclusion leveraging technology. So one thing we say about OPay is that we are a payment company with a social mission. We're not just a payment company doing payments. Our mission is to make sure that no one is left behind in terms of getting them involved in the opportunities of the modern financial rail. We are last mile rail builders. We are focused on building last mile for consumers and merchants. And what that means is that there are partners in the first mile, the middle mile, that we all play and complement ourselves together. We are focused on just playing the last mile. We need to partner, and we are partnering with the rest of the ecosystem to support the objective of the regulator, which is to have a trustworthy and a trustworthy payment system with good customer experience. We work with our banks, our fintechs, our processors, our switches. Without all the partners that we have, especially our banks, our processors, and our switches, we cannot do what we are doing at OPay. So partnership is very important. I'd like to say that if there's one lesson we learned in Q1 this year, it's that payment is partnership, because there's not one single player that can deliver a successful payment experience on their own. You have to work with at least 2 or 3 other parties to deliver the customer experience that your customers are looking for on your platform. So it has never been more true what they say, that payment is partnership. And we need to continue to support and complement ourselves to ensure that we succeed together, that we are good together for the good of the experience of the customers that we want to deliver. OPay, we at OPay, we continue to play our part. Like I said, we are last mile rail builders for merchant and consumers. We want to continue to partner with the rest of the ecosystem, our banks, who collect, where we warehouse the collections that we do, our processors, our switches, so that the whole of the ecosystem, we play our part in delivering the good customer experience that are needed. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's continue to work together and complement ourselves as partners so that we continue to succeed together for the good of our customers. Thank you.
That's the topic for the day. And I think we are all very much aware of what financial inclusion is by definition. So it's, according to the World Bank, financial inclusion means that individuals and businesses have access to useful and affordable financial products and services that meet their needs. That being transactions, payment, savings, credit and insurance. And these products should be delivered in a responsible and sustainable way. As the gentleman before me said, Nigeria is a big market, and there is no single player that can deliver actually all of these products to the market. Recently, I'm actually very proud to say that Nine Payment Service Bank has deputy chair seat on CBN committee that created a strategy and now is responsible for deploying a framework how to, thank you, how to elevate women in financial inclusion through agent banking. And part of that survey was that we spoke with, I think, overall with super agents that altogether had like 1 million of agents across Nigeria. And none of them actually deliver other products but payment transactions, cash in, cash out. That means the collaboration, as the gentleman said, is crucial and needed for financial inclusion to happen throughout Nigeria. As I said, we provide platforms and products that make it easy for all the clients, from private individuals to from those who are unbanked and underbanked to those who are, as yet to be financially included, and also to those who are very much digitally savvy and already using banking products in Nigeria. And we are very proud, I am a foreigner, but we are very proud that we are a Nigerian bank built in Nigeria. All our products and services are built by amazing Nigerian team, very young people that are very technologically savvy and understands the needs and requirements from the market. We also cooperate with local vendors, and all our solutions are Nigerian-based solutions, starting from our core banking system through our mobile application that I invite you all to download and to embark on really seamless customer journey and to see how financial inclusion looks in reality with good services. So our motto is that we are on a mission to bank Niger, and we invite all stakeholders to join us and be part of our journey. Thank you very much.
Let me just go straight to our topic for today, which is focusing on the customers, addressing customer needs for contactless payment, for digital payment. And we've been having a lot of conversation on contactless payment. I just wanted to start by highlighting a few things that everybody can take home from contactless, right? What we've seen is that payment has evolved, especially card payments, has evolved from what you swipe, right? In those days of magnetic stripe, we started by swiping, and then we came with EMV cards where you then insert. But now it's going into tap and wave, right, with contactless. And also, you know, the powerful thing is that you can then use payment cards, you can use smartphones, you can use wearables. And then it's also driven by technology, NFID, RFID, NFC, you know. So there's a lot of technology behind this. But really, I try to say, okay, as we're talking about the evolution of payment, can we trace back a little to see where we've come from and what has been the history of digital payment, and just tracing it a little bit to cards payment. And I found an interesting story that cards, as we come to know it, actually started a little bit around 1950, and it was just an American businessman who went for dinner and he forgot his wallet at home. And I think a lot of us, or a few of us, might have experienced things like that, where you forget your wallet at home. But now, thanks to mobile payment, you can do transfer. But in those days, there's this thing that we say in Nigeria that you're going to wash plates because you have to work for that food that you just ate because you don't have your money with you. But this guy forgot his wallet at home, and I think his wife had to come to bail him. But he said, okay, this problem had to be solved. And they created something like an IOU. So they had a cardboard card where you sign in and then you drop with the restaurant, and anytime you come, and that's how Diners Club was created. Just from that experience, and it grew to the Diners Club that we all know right now. But why am I going into this story? It's not just to bore you, but it's to let you understand that the whole of payment as we've known it has been built on trust. Why will a shop owner honor that card that you've dropped? Because the shop owner understands that at the end of the month, I can get settled. So why will any customer embrace this digital payment solution and everything that we are pushing right now? It has to be built on trust. I have to understand that anytime I wave that card that you've asked me to wave, it's going to work. There will not be issue of switch inoperative. There will not be discharge error or dispense error. There will not be chargeback and all of those issues. So trust is going to be very important. But we've seen payment evolve from the cardboard cards to plastic, to magnetic stripe, and then to EMV cards. We know the problem with magnetic stripe with a lot of fraud and a lot of challenges around it. And then EMV came and improved the security. But one of the presenters yesterday was also going through to say, despite the fact that we have chip that's difficult to clone now, and you have to use your PIN, people are still getting defrauded. I'm standing here right now just to say, in all the conversation that we're having, we need to put the customer first. And I think we say that with word of mouth, but in action, we hardly do. So we need to have a lot of focus session, a lot of collaboration needs to happen. So if you're working on a digital solution, you need to work with people who are doing a lot of grassroots work, like 9PSB, like other PSB, people who are working, like we had Momo yesterday, engaging and communicating with the customers to ensure that what we're building will not only work for those of us in the room, but we work with everybody, irrespective of where they are in this country. Thank you so much.
Fintechs would be the demise of incumbent financial services, right? I mean, fintechs would kill banks. Yes. Yes, fintechs will have to kill banks. Well, no. They have to come together. They have to join forces to serve the customer. I think over the last decade or so, this narrative, or over the last 5 years, the narrative that fintechs would kill banks has changed. So let's look at the evolution of fintech, how we've evolved. Fintech 1.0 started sometime after the economic downtime in the US, 2008, where fintechs began to unbundle the banks. So wealth tech, lending, focusing on specific customer segments, serving niche markets, okay, gig workers, and the likes. So they were bundling the banks. So the services that are available in the financial institutions, fintechs began to come up with innovative propositions along those lines, and this drew the attention of the segments that they were targeting. So the aim was we were going to destroy the banks, we were going to disrupt the banks. And then to Fintech 2.0, the banks said, hey, these guys are coming for us. So they began to set up innovation labs. Let's build our own fintech. But banks have a lot of baggage. There is a lot of bureaucracy. Size can become an issue for innovation. Okay, so it was a competitive strategy. Let's go at loggerheads. And then we arrived at Fintech 3.0, where we all realized that collaboration was key. I have unique strengths as a fintech. I am nimble, I'm agile, I can take risks, I can uncover new business models quicker. My cost structure is way more affordable than what an incumbent has. And then the incumbent has built customer trust over a long period of time. They have established risk frameworks that can guide you. They have corporate governance, in place. So we can combine the strengths of both the budding fintech entrepreneurs and the established incumbents to serve the customer. Because fintech should really be about the customer. It's about the options that we give to these customers to make the most use of their money or their finances. So it's really about the customer. It's not about us. So collaboration is key. One of the deterrents for adoption of open banking in the UK when they were pushing for it was because banks were considering the huge cost of investment that they would need to make to transform their legacy applications to be able to take advantage of new technologies. But having a framework that is like a service-oriented architecture, you can avoid making those huge investments and begin to realize value while you re-architect your back-end services. And this way you avoid vendor lock-in. You can swap out solution components without having to change your integration. Low code is key so that you can achieve faster integrations. And of course, business agility, and you future-proof your business because you'll be seen as a friendly and technology-savvy bank. So in wrapping up, there are risks and challenges, yes, which cuts across technical, business, and regulatory. On the technical front, you need to think about scalability, cybersecurity, and the likes. On the regulatory side, how do you make sure that you're compliant with regulation? But there are also new growth opportunities, which includes the new customer segments that I talked about, the additional revenue streams by taking advantage of these things, and of course, future-proofing your business. So in closing, I would say that collaboration is not competition, it is cooperation, and together we can we can achieve more and really serve the customer, who is really the essence of financial services that we're providing. Thank you.
Very recently, as I'm sure we are all familiar with, there was such a scenario in the industry in Nigeria where we had the CBN introduce a new policy relating to cash. And with that happening, and with the unavailability of cash, so to say, we began to see a surge in transactions, a surge in payments. Everyone was trying to carry out payment through one means or the other. For most of us here sitting in this room who have access to mobile phones and cards, this transition wasn't so much of a transition. It just meant dependency on cash and how we execute some of these transactions would have to increase. But for some other brackets of citizens or residents, this actually became a very huge challenge, especially when you consider that for every 2 payments that were processed, you had about 1 failing during this particular period. So in my slides, I'm going to be talking about how we've evolved, how we've gotten to this point, and what we could do better leveraging cutting-edge, modern-day interchangeable technologies. So adaptation is key to survival. As you will see, innovation has expanded the reach and improved the quality of financial services as well as reducing the costs. From transitioning from a barter system, which most of the world was used to in the 18th century, up to this point, you see the traditional banking has sort of evolved. So typically before, as you would have it, majority of banking customers to access financial services would typically have to go to a bank branch, create an account, and essentially need to utilize these particular interfaces to either withdraw cash or to deposit cash. So moving on, you then have electronic banking, you have ATMs, you had POS terminals, and it sort of became a bit more easy for consumers like you and I to, say, have access to cash outside of banking hours as you would have it. Then came the age of the internet where you could possibly make payments to merchants, you could make payments for certain services it is you need. You can also make peer-to-peer transfers to actually consummate, to actually exchange value for certain goods and services it is that you have purchased. Now you have all of this happening over time and happening within different decades. And more recently, particularly in the last decade, then you had the fintech disruption, or as fintech 1.0, as the last speaker had referenced. And with this, you began to see the emergence of technology companies, in some cases obtaining payments and banking licenses, and trying to add better experiences, deliver convenience, and also make these services cheaper than what you would have what traditional banks currently offer today. So this is sort of like what we have seen over time, especially more recently within the last decade. I essentially believe every institution, whether you're a bank or whether you're a fintech, is really irrelevant at this point. Every bank has built its services upon a technology stack. So in a sense, every bank is a technology company and every technology company is a bank. So on what rung you are playing, what side of the scale you are operating on is really irrelevant at this point. The thing is, if we do not all evolve, begin to utilize more interoperable systems in the way we carry out transactions, you're going to have, like the way fintechs have said they've disrupted banks, you're also going to have newer players who are doing this, particularly focusing on new forms of financial services, such as decentralized finance, come and disrupt everyone as you would have it. Yeah, thank you, everyone.
So I have here that in the next 5 years, we'll see more changes in commerce than we have seen in the last 50. But I'm going to change that 5 to the next second. And why I'm going to change that is because as even we are standing here and speaking, people are busy thinking of new things, thinking of how to create innovative digital payment across different channels. So instead of 5 years, I'm going to say in the next few seconds, because this is an ongoing thing. I'm sure maybe in the next time we come here, we are going to be talking about some other types of innovative payments that have happened. So it's ongoing. It's not something that is static, because the world is also moving, right? So I'll start by looking at what the revenue trajectory will be. We all know that for every business, there's a revenue opportunity. I can tell you here that even the other speakers is not just having a party to talk about digital payment. We're also going to be looking at the expected revenue from this landscape. if you look at the graph, between 2021 and 2026, there's a leap of about 8.3%. Why is this so? This is the moment we are now. This is the moment of everybody knowing that we have to go digital. Is this going to increase? Yes. It's expected that this will increase to about 7.6% by 2031, which will give us about 3.3 trillion USD. This could change, yes, but instead of going lower, it's even going to go much more higher. This is a conservative number in terms of the expected revenue across contactless. So what are the forces driving contactless? We are looking at the young city dwellers, strong economic intelligence. We are looking at the rapid spread of alternative payment methods. Of course, disruptive innovation and payment infrastructure across different channels. These are some of the things that is driving the way people think, what people want, the solutions that the market is also providing. So today we are talking about digital, we are talking about contactless and all that. But it starts from when you're creating the account. It starts from when the entity, you're creating that entity. The entity is the client. It starts from creating the card, the virtual card. How many people today trust in virtual card instead of your plastic? How many people today trust that my card details can be on my phone and I can just tap and go? It starts by activating the card digitally. It starts by being informed and performing transactions. So I'm going to quickly run through this. So for us in Network International, use cases we have today, API, most of our transactions are API driven, which makes it easy. We have the sandbox that we provide for our banks today to enable them play around, develop their products, create product features, and all that. Of course, we have the virtual card, our bread and butter. And then we have the white label digital wallet platform, tokenization, biometric authentication. Somebody talked about authentication 2 ways. So today biometrics, using your fingerprint, using your eye and all that. And then, of course, to make sure that we protect people and encourage them to use this, there must be embedded fraud detection, which should be real-time online. I think that should be thank you after that, right? So thank you.
Okay, so we've made a lot of advancement in Africa. And some of the achievements can be seen with the unicorns that we've given birth to, Flutterwave, Andela, Paystack, and all of that. And we can also look at some of the advancements we've made in digital payment solutions. So I'm coming from a conglomerate where I'm now focused on winning the war. I've come from a background where we've won battles, where we've changed from magnetic stripe to chip and pin, where we've certified ATMs, and we've been fixing ATM issues. I've been on the field, so it's been battles, but it's been interesting to see all the speakers talk about advancements in solutions. I would rather focus on collaborations outside of our fintech world with other industries for something that can move digital payments. You would have heard, despite the revenue generation that digital payments has brought about, as of 2020, Africa made over $24 billion, through digital payment. And there's a constant statement, even in Nigeria, they keep saying, we are scratching the surface. So when are we going to go deeper? How can we get deeper? And I think that was what happened to Emmanuel while he was presenting. I'm not making fun of him, but there are other issues that we need to look at things that can make payments go further and deeper. Let us have a run through for some of us that are still new in the evolution. Some statistics say that we have made advancements in digital payments, in revenue, in GDP. Some would say that Africa has had a dip in economy in the last 10 years. Growth can be defined in many ways. I would say I would lean towards the growth whereby we have made a lot of advancements. Just to make us appreciate where we are coming from, is to see all the modes of payment that we've had to, handle in our history in Africa. We've done with paper, precious coins, precious metal coins, gold, backed by the dollar at a time. We've had cards. The world has gone mobile. And now we have blockchain being pitched by Zone. Good presentation. Now, a lot of these are very good. But in recent times, let me focus on the digital aspect of where we are now in payment. Payments cannot be successful without communication. Payments cannot be successful without power. So we've been collaborating with ourselves. Some people produce cards, some people produce wallets, virtual wallets, some do, all sorts of things. But let me borrow an idea from the military because they use their leadership skills in business schools. The military is divided into different special areas. You have the guys that are airborne, air fighters, you have the artillery, you have the foot soldiers, and you have the special forces. If you notice, among the special forces, they are always very small units, because you can't have a lot of people that know everything. So sometimes I wonder why, as an entity, you are trying to do everything, whereas you have people that are specialized in specific areas. There are people that are specialized in security. There are people that are specialized in payments like us. There are people that are specialized in power. The ATMs that you use, it's power-driven. Even when the branch is out of power, there's still a backup power. To talk to that ATM, there's network connectivity. This is where the telcos come in, or the ISPs. So we will need to start, and I said it earlier that I want to win the war now. We will need to start looking at collaboration outside of fintech. Rather, how can we collaborate with other industries? A good example, we must thank our regulators for the SANEF initiative, but we need something else that can go beyond that. I believe that with the contactless payments, this will really significantly help to drive financial inclusion. But in some interview that I've given, I've always said it's controversial. Without financial empowerment, there's nothing like financial inclusion. But if we're able to move past financial empowerment aspect, then in contactless payments, this will drive speed. The retailers like speed. And I think we are at the area where we need to really promote contactless payments. Thank you.
It's such a pleasure to be here this afternoon, representing the chairman of Committee of E-Business Industry Heads. And CB is proud to be associated with DigitalExpo. We are in the 23rd experience of such. And kudos to Mr. Denyika Adeyemi and his team of experts. You will agree with me that DigitalExpo has impacted the payments and the digital landscape of Nigeria. And a little about CB. CB has also come a long way because we are in tandem with Intermark, the promoters of DigitalExpo. CB is an advocacy group, an association comprising of representatives of banks. And may I stand here on this podium to assure our fintech friends that banking is not going anywhere. We are here to stay. We are here for the long haul. That's the truth. And we are the one that is licensed to have a vault to keep those trillions and billions of your transactions. Most of you are not even insured to keep money. But we are happy to collaborate because we know collaboration is the next competition. And as we joke in our boardrooms, some of you, when rubber meets road, you can pack your bags in a suitcase and walk through Ghana. But the banks, they are standing gidigba. We dey kampe. We are not going anywhere. And we know that we need one another. That's the truth. And we're here at CB, leveraging the partnership and the strength of all the bank CEOs as an advocacy group standing between CBN, the switches, the banks, of course, the fintechs, and all the other payment service banks. So we're glad to be here, and we're encouraging you. Contactless is something that we all have to push. If you notice, since yesterday that I've been coming here, I don't see too far away from Madam Rekia and Promise of CBN Payment System Department, because they are the partners we need to push out the regulatory framework for contactless. Without that, we are just paying lip service. Chinwe, my friend, has spoken extensively over what we need to do and what is going on. By the way, those statistics are top-notch. Of course, I will expect them in my WhatsApp. But the truth is, we need the regulator to demonstrate with their body language, by their action. The director was here yesterday. I was also in one of his entourage to move around. We need that regulatory framework out like yesterday. And on this note, I want to encourage you to pay attention to the next session, that is CB session. It's going to be piping hot as usual. Thank you once again, and see you next year.
So let me start from my extreme right and left. Being the former I'm chairman of CB and a member of the advisory council of CB, in what ways do you think collaboration among industry players can address the cultural, social, and economic characteristics of Nigeria and other emerging markets? What is the role of CB in this regard?
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator, for that question. And that's a question I'd love to just answer because it's an all-encompassing question. I'd like to say that progress can never be achieved in isolation. And the only way to achieve progress is for us to have a collaborative platform where all the pieces that all of us have built can be cemented together to achieve the objective. To break that down further, I think that collaboration should not just be looked at from the perspective of the various players in the financial industry alone for contactless to actually take off. I think that we need to look beyond collaboration between acquirers and issuers, between the switches and the regulators. We need to look at all the other enabling entities that are necessary for us to deliver contactless payments. I grab it home. If you look at contactless payments, there must be devices to accept, devices to acquire the transaction. So we cannot afford to leave the OEMs that manufacture those devices behind. They must be a part of the conversation that's going on in the room. Those are the people that can come up with various form factors that can be used in various use cases, the various payment scenarios that we need to see. We also need to think in terms of who are the people that will be the carriers for the traffic. That's where the telcos also come in. Are you carrying the traffic with data? How can we bring down the cost of data so that it becomes more ubiquitous, becomes more affordable for people? We also have to think about those people that will innovate around the various experiences that we need to create for the customer. For instance, who is going to put in the hands of customers a device that will enable them to be able to collect money very easily, particularly micro merchants? I think that for contactless to take off, we need to rethink micropayment as a whole. I don't want to go into the history of all the things that some other speakers have spoken about,
I agree with you.
but one of the things that you take away from the last currency swap that we attempted to do last year is the fact that cash is still king in this economy. And where the cash is sitting is at the center of micropayments. The B2B payments have been taken care of. Payment between you and I have been taken care of. But who is taking care of payment that happens on a daily basis? The man that wants to go from one place to another and needs to pay the conductor. Who is going to take care of that?
I'll come back to you on that, because that cash that you mentioned is a big issue, and that's one of the things that we need to solve with this. But let me go to Mary, with respect to the regulator. When Damola of JumiaPay was presenting, he said that in some clients where contactless has tried, governments and regulators has a role to play in ensuring that that project worked. So, as a special advisor to the government on payment services, what role is regulator, the central bank, trying to play in the deployment of digital payments in Nigeria, contactless payments?
Okay. Good afternoon, and thank you for that. So, I think I would like to step back a little bit in terms of why do we need regulation, as opposed to what can regulation offer to us as well. So from a regulatory point of view, it is our role as central bank to look at all players and try to provide a solution that is equitable and that will enable us to move forward in the world in terms of contactless payments. So in terms of our role is to be equitable, to understand, to be as futuristic in our thinking as we can as well. So we have a lot of fintechs, we have a lot of great ideas in terms of how we can push this forward. Now, the question to ask is, are those great ideas, how do they benefit us as individuals, how do they benefit organizations, and how do they benefit the country as well? Somebody was alluding to the fact that we also need to be cognizant in terms of what other areas of the world are doing, and where we can collaborate, where we can partnership, we should do that, because there's no point in us having this great system that nobody in the world can use, because we have to think about cross-trade, we have to think of all those kind of things. So in terms of what we bring to the table, it is to understand, it is to push, it is to regulate, to ensure that we are all working within the limits of, should I say, the law or the regulations, and hopefully drive it forward from there.
Thank you very much for that. Let me go to the Chief Growth Officer of Touch and Pay, responsible for acquiring transactions on Lagos Ferry, the BRT buses, and the proposed Lagos train. From your experience, what has the adoption of contactless payment, because you have a card that is tapped on an acquiring device, and then the transaction is consummated. We will have taught culturally, maybe negotiations or people who take those buses will not accept digital payments. But today, give us from experience, how would you say the adoption of because I see people on BRT buses, and I know that they must have paid somehow. It's not free all the time. So from your experience, what do you think is happening there?
Okay. Okay, that's a very interesting question. Adoption for us in a single word is breaking habits. So we're talking about the bottom of the pyramid, even the elites that have been used to a certain way, and you're now changing their habits. And I'll give you a very, very simple example. When we first started, a few people decided not to use the card because there's a funny rumor that it says that it works offline and it uses your blood. We literally had to go to each bus stop to show people that this is how it works. Some people said it will shock you if you use it. And that has made us learn that we need to invest more. And I couldn't agree any less with Mr. Agemi when he said there's an idea behind micropayments, and it's switched between two people. The users, in my case, the commuters, and the merchants, right? And we can't bring old experiences from the existing payments infrastructure into this new conversation. So he mentioned a lot of fantastic things, the kind of devices, the conversation between the merchants and the people that will use it. So adoption needs to have such conversations. And in our case, we literally had to do everything. We had to go and sensitize. We had to show the merchants how it works, the values to them, the fact that transactions can grow, and break that habit. And that's why I link adoption to habits. It is direct. And that's what we've seen in our case.
Thank you very much for that. So that means that the role of public enlightenment and education cannot be overemphasized.
Absolutely.
I know COVID also helped us. COVID was bad, but it helped us to adopt some few things. So let me go to Emmanuel in building infrastructure. COVID-19 pandemic impacted the adoption and acceptance of contactless payments. This trend, has it come to stay, or because there's no longer COVID? People don't wash their hands anymore. Today, we greet ourselves, we hug ourselves. During that time, in church, we sit very far away from each other, but today we hug ourselves because COVID has finished. So this trend that we saw on the uprise on contactless payments, now that COVID has finished in God's name, what do you think? Has this trend come to stay, or it will go down the road?
That's an interesting question. So, in church, we normally shake hands when it's time to say, "The peace of the Lord be with you." And after COVID, during COVID, we used to hold our hands together and do like namaste, you bow. And now that COVID is over, you still find some people keeping to that tradition of bowing and not shaking hands in church. COVID made us aware of, let me use the word contagion. You don't know when there will be a pandemic, and you don't want to be the first to be exposed. If at all, you get exposed. So it did accelerate the adoption of contactless, and a lot of money was made. We, in the technology infrastructure side, saw a lot of demand from our financial institutions to build proximity payment solutions. And we actually made a lot of revenue in that COVID year. It was one of our best years. But in terms of whether it has come to stay, I would say yes, it has come to stay, because the habits that we formed in terms of hygiene and how we want to protect our health, we are all aware of. Even those who didn't pay much attention to washing hands do that more frequently now. But the reason why I really say it's come to stay is because it has led to more innovation in contactless payment technologies, some of which, as we go down, I will talk about. But yes, I believe it's come to stay.
Thank you very much. Let me go to the former vice chairman of CB, who is also an advisory member of CB. Remy?
Yeah.
In what ways can contactless payments promote financial inclusion? The central bank vision was 2020, now 2025. That financial inclusion to ensure that digital payments and banking gets to the underserved and the unbanked. So contactless payments, how will it promote financial inclusion, especially for individuals without traditional banking access?
Yeah, thank you, Ajibade, for that question. So, I think what is important is understanding the common denominator, whether you're educated, whether you're tech savvy. There are some things that we are all involved in. One is feeding, one is transportation, and then bills, and for Lagos State, and in a good number of other locations in Nigeria, one of the things we have found that seems to be common, whether you're educated or not, is sport betting. And so making that available to people. What people want to do is just to pay. All right? And that's why the number of times we kept saying cash is king, because it's easy to just do and go. So whatever makes that easy for people to do, to make their payments seamlessly, trust, will definitely advance financial inclusion.
So if you think, for example, of the train station outside of here, Oyster became very popular because it just made payments easy. I like what my other colleague talked about, payment on the BRT. And some of those guys might actually not have a bank account, but they are able to make payments. Okay, so making it easy for them to do their payment, like I said, the things that are common. You eat, you move around, you pay for transportation, you do other things without necessarily having a bank account. So yes, I think contactless will help that, will drive it closer to the people without necessarily, and I think also being that Smith also talked about that in his presentation, that it became an account holder without actually being an account holder, because there is something that has to be done. It needs to make payments, it needs to something around his lifestyle, and a service brought it to him. Okay, so contactless will make that, and will advance that and make it easy for people to do what they are doing, whether they are doing banking or not.
Thank you very much. So, Yemi, let me come back to you.
Yep.
We were discussing cash the other time, the common enemy. Now, as much as cash is still king, in your opinion, and a common enemy, when we talk about trend, wearables, the instruments for contactless, what role do you think digital wallets and mobile wallets will play in the growth of contactless payments? One, two questions for you, and I'm wrapping up your side. The customer experience and loyalty. How will these instruments help contactless to beat cash?
Okay, well, thank you very much again for that question. And I'll tie the two of them together. Again, I always like to think in terms of basics. And because if you understand the basics, then we can actually build other things on it. For most people that work with cash today, one of the problems is that they don't have a bank account and they don't even want to have one, or they don't feel they need one. Yeah. I think that mobile wallets is going to be the first interface that some of these people will first have in terms of an experience that has to do with putting their money with an institution, taking it away from under their pillows and giving it to someone that they can trust. And from that perspective, first and foremost, mobile wallet has a major role to play in contactless advancement. Because from the point that you're able to get them to even have a wallet, then you can begin to build solutions that will enable them to pull money out of that wallet when they need to spend the money, instead of pulling the money into cash again, so that they can be able to transfer to somebody else. So from that perspective, mobile wallet is going to be at the center of contactless for a very long time. Then secondly, in terms of customer experience, contactless has lent itself naturally to quick payments, to no-frills payments, to payment of small ticket transactions, to payments that need to be done without interfering with the way you run your life. And because of that, customer experiences will be further entrenched, positively impacted actually by contactless. Because you are bringing all of these things together, you will also begin to see that merchants will be able to understand their customers better. And understanding them better, they can offer them more services that will further make them more loyal to them. In fact, if payment is easy, impulsive purchase will also become easy, meaning that merchants will be able to sell more because people can pay them more easily. So I think that contactless is actually sitting at the center of this. And if we open up contactless, we'll open up another round of growth in digital financial services in Nigeria.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you very, very much for that. Let me go to my final question to Mary. The central bank has done fantastically well with some of the initiatives we see in the market today. Open banking framework is out. The industry settlement settlement system that is in place. The current framework on contactless payment that we're talking about. Now, consumer protection, consumer data, how do we prevent fraud in contactless payments? You know, because somebody just carry your phone or pick your device, instrument, and goes somewhere to tap and walk up, like Dabola said that time. Can you shed light into control security from the perspective of the regulators that we should be envisaged or that should look at? I know the central bank, through the framework, has guided all the operators to please think security in deployment. But from the regulator's perspective, what security measures should we be expecting from you?
Okay, so basically, how long is a piece of string? Security is an ever-occurring nightmare for everyone, to be honest, not just the central bank. But in terms of what we are doing, so we, as an organization, obviously I won't go into that much detail, but in terms of, first of all, protecting the data. So the first thing is, how do we ensure everyone's data, individuals and organizations, are not in a position where they can be used in a way that we do not want? That's the first thing, protecting data. And that is something that we're all responsible for an individual and from an organizational perspective. So I suppose the first thing is to ensure people understand that what they should and should not do in terms of exposure. That's one. The second thing also is in terms of technology, because a lot of people, as we always say, Najano they carry last. If you hear of the things that we encounter in terms of how people are collecting data, how people are using it inappropriately, it's mind-boggling. So I suppose we have to use technology as fiercely, as aggressively as we can to ensure that we're always one step ahead. We obviously have the regulations as well, and as you said, there are guidelines which, as often as we can, we are updating to ensure that we, again, are one step ahead. But it's a constant battle. It's something that we take very, very seriously. Even for our own CBDC eNaira, it is something that we face. Even the CBN's e-wallet has faced that. So it's something that we have to always continue to do, and just make sure we have the right people in the right jobs to ensure that we do what needs to be done to stay one step ahead.
Thank you, Mary. Let me go to the Chief Growth Officer of TAP. And the last question for you, are there any potential drawbacks or limitations to widespread adoption of contactless payments in Nigeria, where cash is king? So what is stopping us? What will stop us?
Okay, so I think two things in my own opinion. First is localization. We don't have to think of contactless as the same way we look at the standard chip and pin and the likes. And I'll give you a very fantastic example. You are trying to use contactless into micropayments, and what we tend to see is we are trying to replace cash, right? Meaning this contactless payment must guarantee speed, must be fast and the likes. Meaning the kind of devices that you provide is not the same standard one cap fits all for chip and pin. The device that will be on the bus is different from the device that will be at the grocery store, is different from the device that will be at the merchant locations and the like. So that is one of the major things that we need to see, to rethink how we approach contactless transactions. The second is stakeholder engagement. We all need to come together to play our part. Just like Ms. Mary said, the stakeholder playing their parts, the fintechs, the banks, the wallets play, making it easier to break that habit of cash. So that stakeholder engagement is key, right? And I'll wrap up with an example that drives this home. So when we started, I mentioned electricity. People feel like the card is shocking. So we went to the same bus terminal one day. A woman had 5 kids in front of her. Each of them, she had just one card. And she didn't throw any tantrum. She was on the queue, she was fine. When it got to her turn, she just scattered everything. She just started ranting. Mind you, she has the money, but she was just scared of technology. She doesn't even know how to use it. And she just threw a very interesting tantrum. We had to calm her down. Well, this is what you do. Don't worry. Nobody will look at you any different. Like, I brought my cash. Nobody will do that. Which one is this? And she had her cash, and she had everything to do it. So there's that role of stakeholder engagement. Right now, we are all doing everything. So if I deploy a technology, I'm the one going to advocate. I'm the one doing everything. And it takes the energy out in terms of growth of contactless acceptance. Yeah.
Okay.
Can I just Sorry, can I just add one thing, if I may? So following on from what he said, one of the things that we have been speaking about here was collaboration. And at the moment, we're still quite a distance away from that. So just picking up on what he said in terms of everybody wants to own it from end to end. Sometimes we need to step back and just think, let's play to our strengths as well. Owning it end to end, while it ensures you have the the ownership, but what it does do is that it stops us from getting quick to market. And it maybe also stops us from looking at what is good for the customer as opposed to what is good for us as organizations as well. Just to add to that.
Thank you very much. Most times, we actually build products for ourselves. So what I hear you say is that after building it for ourselves, we should take it to the market and test and be sure that nobody is saying it will shock you. And just in case anybody says it will shock you, you tell the person it won't shock you. Maybe we then begin to promote
and
that.
here's the proof.
You know that it will shock you.
Yeah, so let me just quickly jump on that and apologize. So the reason we need to that advocacy is we've seen a huge jump in adoption based on some things that happen. So if I work with a financial facility providing company, maybe a bank, today, you'll be surprised that I give out over 30,000 small overdrafts on the PRT, where artisans know that they are going to make their money on their way to work. And that's the reason they use the card. They would not go to cash. So I know I have 500 naira in my pocket, and I have my calorie card in my pocket. So why do I need to pay 500 naira when I calorie card can allow me ride on the bus and run my card into negative, and when I'm coming back and clear my balance? Now, the problem is I have to do it. I'm the one providing that overdraft. I'm the one providing the technology. Why not form that collaborative effort? And that's what will drive stickiness and adoption.
Thank you for that. I think Yemi mentioned it around collaboration in the first instance. Let me go to Emmanuel now, because you are building infrastructure for innovation. You can recall the innovation you mentioned just now. He has layered lending, overdraft, to contactless payments. And so the payments and overdraft have now become siblings that they are working together. What role do you envision contactless payments playing in the future of commerce and everyday transaction? I'm asking you, Emmanuel. That's one question for you. What innovation and advancements, apart from this one that you just mentioned, do you expect? You know, because from his example, he has mentioned credits going with payment. Are there other ones that we can think of? Because when you were presenting, you mentioned several collaborations between organizations. A lot of them you mentioned. So can you just give us some ideas as you build that infrastructure for the ecosystem?
Okay. In terms of the role contactless will play, I think it's going to keep on playing a major role in retail commerce as we advance, and also in financial services. The example of innovation he's given here is, I would liken that to bundling. So he's bundled lending or credit, microcredit, to the card to incentivize the user to use that card. Just like you have Amex and KLM having that loyalty card. So there are a lot of services that you can layer on a contactless card to make it multifunctional. For example, the NIN card, the physical card, ideally, it has up to 13 applets. So it's both your identity card, there's social benefits payments, and it can also be used for mass transit and other use cases. So those sort of innovation can be given birth to. And this is one of the things that open technologies allows, like Google Maps and Uber.
Yeah.
So that's on the innovation side. But the innovation, I was referring to like what we would expect as a next frontier of innovation in contactless payments. There are a few examples, like there's a Swedish company called Biohacks. I hope I got the name right. And they are working on embedding chips into your skin, underneath your skin. And then you can use that chip to make payments. I also recently read that Visa is researching and experimenting on the use of holographs to authenticate payment. So a hologram has the capability to reproduce the image in 3D form as a replica of the one that was created before. So you tap your card, and there's a QR code on the card. And if a merchant is accepting that card, maybe on a soft POS, he can scan the QR, the hologram would come up, and he can use that to authenticate the transaction while the customer is present. We could also begin to see biometric cards where you place your fingerprint on a biometric sensor on the card, and when you tap that card on the terminal, it powers the sensor to scan your fingerprints in order to authenticate the payment. There is also Bluetooth. In transportation, there are Bluetooth beacons. So when you get into the train, it detects that there's a Bluetooth beacon around you, and you can opt to pay with Bluetooth. And those are the kinds of innovations that I expect that we would see. But some are already happening, like you would have heard of Amazon Go. So you walk into the shop, you shop, you come out, your account is debited. And they're using computer vision, facial recognition, using your irises. In China, facial recognition is already being used for payments. So there is more, and that's the exciting thing about open innovation that allows or supports innovation that we don't even know that will be possible. Yeah.
Wow. We need more Chinese in Nigeria for all of these things to work. Because some of these things will just be like magic. Ordinary to tap and pay in Nigeria and say, it will shock me. So you guys, you better get ready for a lot of things coming your way. And to wrap up the CB session, let me ask Remy. We've had Mcash, NIP, instant payments, in-era, this one, that one, and now we are going to the era of contactless. What are the unique propositions, the difference between contactless and those other payments we've had in the past? Are you sure this one will blow? So what are those unique propositions that will happen? And what are the implications of contactless payments for traditional banking, over traditional banking payments?
Thank you, Ajibode, again. Another very interesting question. So, Nigeria is a great nation. I'm always not scared when people say we are late to market, because I know when we are ready, we take the lead. Another nation that have gone ahead starts catching up. So you will recall, let me just take a step back. I remember when we had an industry-led engagement on contactless to even come up with a framework and suggestion to, remember, I think you were part of that. I remember I led that discussion. And one of those sessions, we don't have a framework. We are proposing to the central bank what we think should be the guiding rule. And then I remember I called NIBS to say, NIBS, give us an idea. Do we even have contactless app in Nigeria? And we were shocked that a number of touch points, we already have contactless happening. We have devices, and most of our cards in Nigeria now come contactless. So people are already doing contactless. The only thing I think is delaying that push is the final approval guide from CBN. When that happens, and we take ownership as, financial institution with our other partners and other stakeholders, I think this is going to scale. And the reason why I said that is because even before the final approval, while we're still deliberating and planning, we already see it happening. The toll gate experience was one of the things that we still were already tapping, and it was working. So while I see events happen that encourage or made it more interesting, the COVID era we talked about, the cashless era that we talked about, just brings to the fore the importance of what people are ready to embrace. And I think the market is right. Most banks are ready. Just because we are highly regulated, we're waiting for that final nod from the CBN. I think this is going to scale, and it's going to scale very quickly. In China today, QR is a big deal. Okay, so just the same way we saw the USSD market view, I think contactless is not going to be the next big thing in Nigeria.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of the CBR. As we have heard from our panelists, various questions that you sent in, the contactless payments has come to stay. It is safe, it comes with speed, and it is sufficient for the industry. So we should begin to think about those innovations. Once the central bank released the approved guideline for this, operators are supposed to flood the market, and we should not stop all this kind of public engagement, education, and enlightenment to ensure that our users are using this solution. We should also try not to build solutions for ourselves.
Thank you. That's a good one. Now, so what do I see as the future of payments? I'll just start from where we are today, right? So in countries like Turkey, right, we've seen in countries like Turkey, China, India, QR code payments have taken up. In places like Kenya, peer-to-peer payments, instant payments, has also already taken off. And in Nigeria, due to COVID and also the cashless policy or the situation around cash that happened this year, we've actually seen acceleration of digital payments and services today. I'm sure anyone here today that is probably receiving deliveries or working with people, everyone today is coming with an OPay wallet. Before now you have to pay with cash or convince people to accept transfers for delivery. But today it's commonplace for an OPay wallet or a PalmPay wallet for to receive payments. And these are some of the shifts that we've already started to see. And the predictions is saying that cashless payments volume is still set to increase by over 80% between 2020 and 2025. If you ask me, I would say that's really massive. And this is from a trillion transactions to 1.9 trillion and triple of that by 2030. So this analysis was done by PwC. So we're already moving towards the right track when it comes to seamless payments, digital payments. Still speaking about where we are now, this just shows the level of growth in terms of digital payments across different regions from Asia, Africa, Europe, and the likes. It's very clear today that when it comes to these digital payments, Africa is still a bit behind, and the room for growth is very massive. And for me, that just presents a great opportunity, and it's very exciting to see how things will progress from here. So yeah, how is FinCra enabling frictionless payments? Different ways, banking as a service. We make it easy to distribute bank accounts, right? You have banks opening accounts, you have different mobile wallets reaching people in the last mile. And today, FinCra, we've partnered with a lot of these guys, both the mobile wallets and the banks, to make it easier for fintechs to deploy accounts to customers. Of course, there's online payments processing. We make it easy for merchants to accept payments online as well as offline. We've also built platforms, targeted at financial institutions like banks, MMOs, super agents, to easily deploy some of these solutions like, POS devices that can accept transfers, can accept USSD, accept cards. We also have platforms that also make it, easy for a bank to deploy an agency solution in 1 week. Terminal management systems that enable banks to accept payments via multiple PTSPs and switches on one terminal. Right, so this is a very big deal because today as a bank, if I'm working with ITEX or GA or whoever it is, I have one terminal fixed to one PTSP or fixed to one processor, and that's all I can do with that one terminal. That's a limitation, right? One terminal should be able to talk to multiple PTSPs, talk to multiple switches, accept payment through multiple channels like transfer, USSD, pay code, and the likes. Right? And your merchant should be able to have access to a dashboard to view their transactions, to make reconciliations seamless. We've leveraged our strength, which is technology, to partner with banks to make things like this happen. And these are just some of the things that we do today. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope payments keeps on becoming seamless.
So for anybody who is a business owner, who's a manager, who's hiring people, this word can strike fear into your heart, right? We're worried about people leaving Nigeria and going overseas, right? Shife Jakpa? No. So we know the context. It's difficult to find skilled talent. Globally, there's a shortage in particular talent, particularly tech roles, but some other key roles as well. As economies digitize, even more and more digital skills will be required. So the competition is going to get even tighter for payments providers and other companies looking for these skills. African employers struggle to compete, right? We're fighting an uphill battle. So what does this mean for the future of payments in Africa? Well, it depends. McKinsey just put out a new report, I think in the past week, on economic growth in Africa. This is from an earlier report McKinsey had done on electronic payments, which just forecasts the potential growth in the market in Africa. So we know that there's tremendous opportunity in this sector. We've seen a lot of foreign direct investment also come into this space, right? But McKinsey highlights this question at the end. Which players will move fastest, right? And I think there is a question mark about the extent to which we're going to be able to really capture this market. So how can we realize growth in the payment sector? So we're going to need to be innovative, and all of our speakers today have really spoken about innovation, right? However, we know that most of the new products that get pushed into the market every year fail, right? And why do they tend to fail? Product market fit. I like this comic that points out that teams can move very fast in the wrong direction, right? At Semicolon, I said that we train software engineers. We actually start with design thinking training because that's the #1 problem. And I know some of the earlier presenters and panelists really spoke about customer-centric, human-centric design, right? So we need to make sure that we are designing the right solutions, putting them out the right way, partnering, et cetera. And that is going to require talent, and that is going to require highly skilled talent. So the teams we're going to need to capture this market are not the teams that maybe we had in the financial sector 20, 30 years ago. Those teams, even in the regulators, those people primarily were good at understanding a system, working within that system, continuing to execute, right? Hitting targets. No, now we need innovators. We need technology specialists. But we don't have those people. That's where I started, right? we don't have enough of them. We're competing on a global stage. They're going to Canada. What do we do? Well, the truth is we do have those people, right? So this is from the newer McKinsey report I mentioned that just came out this past week. We know this, right? But I love the graphic really starkly illustrates the darkest blue curve going up is our population in Africa, right? The world's workforce is going to be in Africa in the next few decades. We have them here. So this is the opportunity we have, right? So I would challenge us when we hear Canada and we think about Japa, I would challenge us to shift our mindsets a little bit from when somebody says, I'm afraid they're going to leave, how do I lock people down? Can I make them sign a bond? Things like that. We're operating in a scarcity mentality. And research, there's a lot of interesting research that shows that people make worse decisions when they're operating in a poverty mindset. And this is important, again, customer-centric design, human-centric design. Most of our customers are low-income customers in Nigeria, in Africa today. There's really fascinating research. We need to understand the psychology behind how they're going to operate, right? But the same thing is actually true for businesses. So evidence has shown that businesses that are operating under a scarcity mindset, under a competitive mindset, who think that the world is zero-sum and they want to hoard as much as they possibly can, they tend to miss out on key business opportunities and tend to be myopic and short-term focused. So we need to shift our mindset to one of abundance, right? We want to think broadly. We want to think strategically. We want to identify ways to unlock this value we have, this latent potential. So, in conclusion, number one, we know this. There's tremendous opportunity in the payments ecosystem if we can unlock it. How do we unlock it? We need to be innovative, we need to be agile, and that is going to be 100% based on having the right team. There's nothing else we have other than the strength of our people, right? Canada is here to stay. They're not going to go anywhere. And some of the other context we discussed is here to stay, right? So we can choose to stress about the things that we can't control, being reactive, or we can choose to take an abundance mindset, right? We can choose to focus on our abundance of raw human capital and build it into the talent that we need, and the talent that will power not only Nigeria, not only Africa, but the rest of the world. Thank you very much.
One of the things that we forgot to mention, it is not Canada that is the problem. It is the internet. Because you are offered a job, you will stay in your house, and you'll be paid in that lovely currency called the US dollar. In your house. You don't need to travel anymore. So don't think that it's Canada. You can stay at home and get paid, right? Bullying, present day effect. So of course, I've mentioned it, adoption of hybrid work. It's here to stay. But what do we do and how do we work around it, right? Another thing that you need to understand, not all jobs can be remote. It depends on the industry. We travel every day. You see human beings at the airport, don't you? So you know that unless if you want them to go hybrid, then you choose the days you want to travel, and then you pay for change of tickets in dollars. And that's not funny anymore. And also, by the time you go, price of petrol, going to the airport every time. I won't mention that again, no. Okay, so what's culture? How do we work around our culture, right? So the first thing is what? How do we ensure that the culture in an organization is diverse? We need to understand that if it's not diverse, if we don't even get the people, even in Nigeria, we have 777 local governments, not talk of other countries as well, around the world. We need to understand that those people, as they come, we need to embrace them and understand their nature so that they can work with us. You also have things like developing cultural intelligence. They don't have to tell you. In our culture, I'm a Yoruba person. When a Yoruba person is coming that's older than you, you kneel down and greet. But in the Igbo, they don't. But wherever you find yourself, try to adapt. Be as adaptable as possible. Study, understand, observe, right? We also need to understand that we need to foster the inclusion in different workplaces. How do we do that? Understand who's coming in before they come in. When you're doing your interviews, who's this person? Try and research. Don't just take people and then you now just throw them in. Don't throw your colleagues to the wolves. It's not fair, right? And then, of course, we also mentioned communication. We need to communicate effectively for us to move forward. By incorporating global thinking into our talent management practices, organizations can effectively attract, develop, and retain a diverse and talented workforce. This is very simple. It is true. Everything that I've said, try, are things that I took my time and I went to check. Not only did I check, I went to school too for it too. I didn't just check. And when I was in school, at least they were taking us from country to check to be sure that it worked. So they are not just examples, but they are facts of things that have worked in other countries, other organizations. So you have this, I think it's Xerox, IBMs of this world, and Oracles and co. It's worked for them, and it can work for us. But another thing that you will say is, I'm a fintech. I'm small, I'm agile. Why? But when you build a good structure, no matter how small you are, what happens is that those little things evolve and they make you grow big, and you grow big with your own selves and at your own pace in the right way. The last one on agile that I'll tell you is, I recall that I had some of my colleagues that came to me and they brought this document, and I saw some funny sticky notes all over the place. I said, I'm an old person now, what's all this one? In my day, it's Gantt charts. You do a project plan and you bring it to me. And I'll say, okay, yes, I'm approving. Now they bring sticky notes all over the place. But guess what? When I was in the bank then, and when I was actually in switching, when you do your project document, you barely have any failures. If you have at least maybe 50 tests, you maybe have 2 or 3. But when you do agile, and you are doing all those post-it sticky notes, regression, you have 20 regression. Meanwhile, it's supposed to be 50 items. 20 regression have already greeted you. Then you now have 2 that you have to redo. So what did you do? And you forget that the most important thing is time. They wasted time because they have to redo it again. So they probably spent 4 weeks doing that, another 4 weeks wasted again on regression. So what does that tell you? We need to ensure that we are structured, no matter what, as a fintech, organized, and we actually do it right, get it right the first time. So thank you very much. My name is Adekunbi Ademilui. It was nice presenting to you.
If you were here yesterday, you would, especially at the opening ceremony, you would have heard me say that the journey has been long, but is still very far ahead. When we started this initiative, it was more or less to, hold and bond the industry and, provide, and I'm talking 23 years ago, provide some sort of, platform for people to come and share knowledge and encourage one another and, take the industry forward. And then it became a platform for the industry, of course, when people started, expanding their scope and businesses. It became a platform where people can then begin to look at the marketplace and the changes that need to happen, especially with respect to this last mile. How do we, onboard, the unbanked, the underserved, and everybody in between. This year, 2023 edition, has been very, even for us as Intermark, very encouraging, especially with people seated here. Please give yourselves a round of applause for coming, making time to come, and not just come, but stay the entire period of 2 days. We really thank you for that. Because these conversations have to be had, right? They are very important conversations. I mean, CBN sent, delegations from a couple of departments, maybe 5 or so departments from CBN. The guys from NDIC, also sent, delegation, very top-level delegation. The same with, banks that are represented here. Same with, fintech stakeholders, and even industry stakeholders. Fintech NGR was here yesterday to look at, how the industry can collaborate across the continent to make things happen, especially when it has to do with, the lives of, consumers across Africa. How can we collaborate as a continent and so on? So it's been very encouraging, to see everybody here. And I'd like to say thank you. Thank you also to the speakers. We were able this year to put a crop of speakers together for 2 days. And they've been fabulous. Can we please give our speakers a round of applause? The speakers for today have been wonderful. Very, very, thought-provoking messages have come out today, just as it did yesterday, and we're very grateful to you guys. Thank you very much. Yes, I know if you're going to clap, please do so. Right, so at this point, to also say thank you to our sponsors and exhibitors. We've had, in the last 2 days, a crop of, very, good people supporting this initiative. Some of them are new in terms of, first time, coming on board to support. We have the MD of RedTech here. He's coming on board the first time. Please appreciate him for us. We have representative of BPC Technologies also. Emmanuel is sitting right there. So apart from putting their money where their mouth is, right? As you can see them speaking because they've put their money where their mouth is. Thank you very much to the speakers. A lot of them are not here. Of course, Kumbi is here. We need to talk. A lot of them are not here at the moment, but if you go to the exhibition booth, I'm sure you'll find their representatives there. Please talk to them as well. Help us say thank you. I mean, if you need a service or a product to boost your own business and to push your business forward, talk to them. Chief of them will be, can I have that slide on sponsors, that thank you slide? I just want to go through a couple of them and then we go. Chief of them will be Secure ID, who has been with us for almost forever, to be honest with you. And also you have, so I can look this way. And then you have Ope, who's coming for the first time, on board as well, at the premium category of sponsorship. And then you have, obviously, sorry? Oh, yes, thank you very much. And then obviously you have Providence Bank, you have Tap and Pay, you have, of course, I've mentioned RedTech and so on. Momo PSB, thank you. You have a couple of banks. And then we have this group of businesses from China, that are helping us push point-of-sale terminals into the market. Very strategic partners in those guys. We say thank you very much to all the sponsors, in between. Without these guys, we would not be here, right? So, having said that, I'd like to just close by saying that please stay, where you are. I believe we have some food pack that will be handed to you. And then for our speakers, we've made some arrangements for you for your lunch. Thank you very much. We've announced also that the event, if you give me that page as well, 6th and 7th, I believe, of June 2024, we will be in this hall as well, looking at, some other interesting themes. We believe by the grace of God we will all be alive and well. There will be no COVID to lock us in or any other thing in that manner. So thank you very much. It's been an honor and a privilege to lead the team that's put this together, and we believe that we'll have cause to gather again very soon. Thank you very much.